Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the World of Football podcast. Once again, live 7:30 on Monday night. You know the place to be. So much again to talk to, from Champions League to Championship to referees and midweek Premier League games. Only the list goes on. So we're in for another packed show. I am joined by the two usual faces, Reese and Nathan, and I'm assuming George and Nathan, and I'm assuming Reese will be joining us within the next couple for the next 10 minutes or so. Hello to Yeti Boy and to Munzie. Ozzy Munzie is still crying probably from that box off to the Pittsburgh Steelers there yesterday. I'm sure that's probably living a prison doctor. Yeah, you should know I do not have like this. Like does not exist in this place. This is my thing, and I love it. Even gents and Chalo Halali, obviously probably our number one fan of this podcast. So yeah, also got all together. Now to change the tone a wee bit. We're not going to be starting with the Premier League for once. We're going to be jumping straight into the Championship. I feel like mixing it up. We're going to go straight to Nathan. Yes, Cardiff City suffered a 1-0 defeat to Coventry City at home on Saturday, but Nathan and his dad, Paul, very vocal on the Twitter, along with a lot of Cardiff fans, over some refereeing decisions. So we're going to get over to Nathan about the 1-0 defeat to Cardiff City on Saturday.
What is it with us, Cardiff City, and referees? It's just absolutely ridiculous. And before I start anything, I will say this: we need VAR in the Championship. But the thing that just absolutely blows my mind, if you haven't seen the vlog yet, make sure to check it out. Link in description below, of course. But I'm sorry, just that linesman should be sacked for what he did. They scored an offside goal, which was clearly offside. Linesman was just like that; he couldn't even see. And then Callum Robinson scores a perfectly fine goal. Everything was hunky dory. The linesman kept his flag down, but then all of a sudden, all the Coventry players swarmed him, begged them to disallow the goal, and they disallowed it for absolutely no reason. It's just absolutely criminal. We were completely robbed of all 3 points, yet let alone one. Even if we got 1 point, I would have been like, we should have had all 3. But the fact we lost the game is absolutely obscene. I'm sorry, the referee, the absolute clown who was in charge of our game was just. I disagree. I massively disagree, Kian. It's been an absolute disgrace for years in the Championship. The referees are just not competent to referee on their own. They're not held accountable. Tom Ramsett, the assistant, went up to him after the game, and the linesman gave him a right earful. They just straight up walked off down the tunnel. Didn't take any of it because they knew they were in the wrong, quite frankly. And yeah, absolute disgrace. And that referee who was refereeing has given us some absolutely abhorrent decisions in the past. And it's knocked the team's morale once again. These completely stupid and disgraceful decisions when we should have won the game. We got the South Wales derby this Sunday. Am I looking forward to it? Absolutely not. I'm to get up at 7:20 in the morning for a match less than an hour down the road for a midday kickoff. It's going to be such an awful week, isn't it? QPR on Wednesday. Referees who can't referee. No manager. The board who I haven't heard from in years. It's just really poor. And this is one aspect of the refereeing decisions that from all of the other nonsense that we've seen this weekend from the Premier League, the Championship, another issue with goalposts yet again. What is going on in football at the moment is absolutely balmy.
Well, there'll be the same problem for even with most decisions which are clear and given because the refs are shit.
In a way, I don't really know about that yet, boy, because if they would have had VAR, it would have been the other way around. But because the referee was so thick that he couldn't see that, and the linesman was just absolutely oblivious to it, then that's why it's needed. Because if there was no VAR in the Premier League, a lot more decisions would be missed because of how bad the referees are. But yeah, we have the worst referees in Europe by far, and the fact they're not held accountable for any of it is absolutely disgusting.
Well, I thought that was a really good way to start off the show. Just having Nathan rant, I think that was a perfect way to get everyone excited for what is to come on the show because there's a lot of refereeing decisions over the course of this week that happened in the Premier League. So.
It's just going to get worse for our fans as well because we got QPR. Well, I'm sorry, but the poor people who got to pay 36 quid to sit in restricted views, I envy about the 1,500 of them going down there. And then the South Wales Derby on Sunday. Oh, it's going to be hell. Absolutely hell.
So let's move into the Premier League, and we're going to start off with Wolves because obviously Wolves did a very scruffy, a very ugly 1-0 win against Tottenham Forest. They scored, I think it was their 4th goal of the season. Ruben Neves penalty. Again, this was probably not a pretty game. Probably a game that both sides needed to win. I'm not going to look at the game itself because, as I said, the game was scruffy, not much between to a penalty scored. Let's see what Gerrard. Wolves were under Steve Davis. Yeah, what the hell that guy is. We'll never hear of him again. And obviously, we'll talk about Forest. But on Wolves, they tried to get Lopetegui in, but Lopetegui couldn't commit to moving to England due to family commitments, which is fine. So they're going to bring back Nuno. Now, this is not confirmed, all right, but this seems to be the likely candidate that Nuno is willing to come back. Now, first of all, to Nuno, I don't know why you would go back to your club and literally sack you. I don't really see the point in that. But the other thing, too, I feel like this is just like a safety net. It's just like Wolves basically saying, we're trying to fight to stay in the league, and Nuno will give us that security rather than try and build on what Bruno Lage was trying to build, because Nuno and Bruno Lage's styles are completely different. So you are going 2 steps backwards, and is that to do with trying to stay in the league, or are you generally worried about relegation or a low league finish, which means you don't get that much money? I don't know. I feel like it for me. It doesn't make much sense, and also Reece has enjoyed the celeries. So
what happens when you're working in the city?
So George, what do you think about Nuno? Do you think Wolves are trying to play it safe here with Nuno, or do you generally see a long-term project with Nuno back at Wolves?
Yeah, just very quickly, I do agree with that, Reece. Actually, yeah, just obviously the commuting and stuff for myself as well is horrendous.
Right.
Fully feel your pain as well. So yeah, but yes, back to the original sort of question. Obviously, yeah, about Wolves. I think it's just a case of sort of scrabbling around in the dark and just trying to sort of hold on to some sort of rock or something to hold on to that you kind of know, which is obviously potentially why they're looking at Nuno again. The funniest bit of this Wolves Nottingham Forest game was actually the social media accounts of both respective clubs, because obviously prior to the game, Nottingham Forest's admin had put out its playtime with some Wolves almost acting like dogs, and then the Wolves admin straight after they'd beaten them 1-0 had this axe that had been embedded into this tree and said playtime's over, which I thought was absolutely hilarious, and that was probably one of the highlights of the weekend. Much less the action was the admins going at one another. But yeah, it's obviously a positive result for Wolves. But at the end of the day, from Forest point of view, they're completely sunk. I don't necessarily think they've got much chance at the moment. It's going from bad to worse. Obviously, Dean Henderson, feel a bit sorry for him. Somewhat, because it feels almost like one-way traffic, and Nottingham Forest have absolutely zero ideas, and they just constantly concede pressure shots and all sorts. So it's just sort of a bit helpless there as well, foundering. But in terms overall for Wolves, I think for me, it's going to prove that I think overall it's maybe for the short term, Nuno will be a good choice, because obviously he knows the league, he'll know a lot of the players, but it feels to me that longer term, they've already decided they didn't want him once, and so why are they bringing back someone again? I don't think any manager realistically should ever go back to the same club again. I mean, it's just that sort of thing that, and I know that eventually sometimes they do have to, because managers have long careers, and of course, many years later you might find yourself going back to the same club, but it's actually relatively quick for Nuno coming back in terms of time span. So I do disagree with it, but it seems to me, obviously, Wolves, as you said, obviously with Lopetegui, that he obviously said no, and it feels like they're just casting about, and probably no one else is coming to mind. So they're like, oh, here's Nuno again, and we know what he's about, and let's just bring him back. But from Nuno's point of view, a bit like what you said, Josh, I don't think he should ever go back. The way he got treated, obviously, I think it's a bit silly for managers to go back to clubs as well, especially if they leave in poor circumstances. So yeah, if I was Nuno, I wouldn't do it, and if I was Wolves, I wouldn't be looking at a manager they've already used.
What do you think, Nathan?
It's a difficult one for me. If I'm honest, Nuno did amazing things at Wolves. He got them from, well, even though Fossen took over, they pumped a ridiculous amount of money into the club. At the end of the day, going from League One to the Europa League in about 3 to 4 seasons is absolutely superb. And Nuno must not shy away from how good of a match he was for Wolves. And everyone thought that, yes, he manager, not much experience, but getting him up there was just absolutely fantastic. Yes, in the end, it didn't work out because he did run out of steam, I thought, of Wolves. He did everything he could with the squad. It was in time for a rebuild, and obviously they just needed someone else to go in for it. And they just needed something different at the end of the day. They'd been worked out. The players were being moved on. So it was time for Nuno to go, really. But at the same time, you can't shy away from his achievements that he had at the club. But, I mean, losing, what's his name, Bruno Lage, with the way that he has left the squad, which in a slightly worse position, tried to change the philosophy. It did, like the formation they're playing in that 4-2-3-1, and with some of the players they're using, it doesn't scream Wolves to me. For me, a Wolves side screams 5 at the back, overlapping wingers, your extremely good talisman in your Ruben Neves, just absolutely screaming Woldies in. That's your true vision of Wolves, with some great young players coming in particular from abroad as well. But I just don't know where they move from here, to be honest. I think Nuno coming back, it's going to take too long for me to improve. And as we've seen with Wolves beforehand, he's going to need a lot of money in January to get back to a Nuno team, which at the end, he's just going to be sacked in around March, to be honest. And for a team that's still playing Adama Traore at right back, at right wing, I'm sorry, there's not much hope there. As for Nottingham Forest, their morale is at rock bottom. Yes, they signed 22 players, but look at some of the players they're still playing. Scott McKenna and Steve Cook at centre-back. Cheku Kouyaté in midfield. Really? Morgan Gibbs-White, one of the most overrated players in the Premier League.
35 million.
It's just, how are they expecting to come off the bottom of the Premier League when they have the likes of Lingard, Joe Worrell, Sam Surridge, for example, Willy Bolly on the bench, Taiwo Iwoni as well, Mangala, new signings. What's Steve Cooper expecting? And then, of course, as we've seen it at Swansea in the past as well, when they end up losing their games, which they have lost they've lost loads on the trot. Yes, got the odd draw, but out comes Steve Cooper's book of excuses. He's just nicked it from Jose Mourinho's bus, hasn't he? Cooper needs to get real for me. Needs to go back to where he was at the start of his Nottingham Forest career. Get back to basics. Get the team gelling again. Get the best out of players that you wouldn't expect for him to do well. Like, for example, Lewis Grabban when he had him until he got released. He needs to get back to what Cooper specialises in for me. And so far, we're not seeing that in Nottingham Forest. And if things don't change, they're going to be like it for a while. And with what the hierarchy are alluding to, they do not want to get rid of Cooper. They see him as a long-term plan, which I think is a sensible decision, because bring anyone else in, Forest are just going to absolutely plummet, and they're going to have financial issues if they get relegated to the Championship next season.
Why in the dark, Josh? Well, this has been I've been in the dark for probably the whole time this podcast has existed.
It's his personality.
Nothing changes. Most people said boys go back to West Ham after they sacked him was a bad decision, but I don't know where else or similar thing could happen.
I disagree because when West Ham got rid of Moyes, it was an absolutely criminal decision because you could see what he was trying to develop there. But for some reason, Golden Sullivan didn't have faith in him. They went for the super expensive option in Pellegrini, of course, Premier League winner, but just complete disaster. Bring Moyes back, get him back on the project because not much had changed with an even better squad. Look at the position they're in now.
All right, Reece, is your opinion Nuno good or bad if he does go back to Wolves?
Oh, 100% wrong choice. Like, there is no positive that can come from this. Like, I've got no issue with Nuno. I think I said it on this show before, like numerous times. I think he's a good guy. He's humble. He's a good manager as well. But I completely agree with Nathan and George about like one going back. It doesn't always work. Like Nuno, to a degree, he's not a Zidane. He's not a Jupp Heynckes. Like he's not that type of guy where he can go back and he's going to get it right. Like Nuno's going to go there. If he does go back, he's going to get it so wrong. Like,
and the thing you've got to remember as well is with what Foss and their owners are alluding to, they're not going to back him in January.
Yeah,
They've backed him enough the last few years, and they backed Bruno Lage in the summer. So
I don't think they can actually afford to either. I don't think they can actually afford it. I think because of the amount of money they've actually invested in the squad, I think they're actually being wary of FFP doesn't exactly exist anymore, but I think they're actually wary of costing the squad because they are paying players like some good wages as well, and they don't have the European revenue to at least balance the books a bit. I think another issue for Nuno is some of these players I think have got split loyalty to him. Like the players, obviously they were there from the beginning. There's that joined them throughout, and then obviously there was players at the very end of his last year when it did go horribly wrong. They weren't really doing anything for him, and I don't think they're going to do the same now. I think personally, I said it last week as well. Like, it's a massive mistake getting rid of Bruno Lage. He had a brilliant first season in the Premier League, done really well with Wolves. Well, because he had a bad start to the season, they're just going to get rid of him. I think that's really weak by a team that generally gives managers a decent amount of time. I think it's wrong with Wolves. Like Wolves aren't going to win a trophy in the Premier League era. Like if you're a Wolves fan, I'm telling you your future now. You're not going to win a Carabao Cup. You're not going to win the FA Cup. You're not even going to make an FA Cup final. Like I'm just telling you now. Like it's not going to happen.
Even we've made more FA Cup finals than they have in this entire century so far.
Exactly. It's no disrespect to Wolves either. It's just flat, like telling the flat truth. Like they just won't do it. Like they're more interested in getting to the mid-table and Premier League or fighting for the Premier League survival. It's not going to work. And I think for Nuno right now needs a job to try and save his reputation because obviously it went wrong at Spurs. But you do not want to save your reputation by going to the club that you were at for so long that sacked you as well. You need to look past yours new. I think, even though I hate his football, I think Wolves are actually missing a trick. I think Wolves should have went and got Sean Dyche. I think right now they need somebody just to stabilise the ship and then look next summer. Because necessarily they're not going to play great football, but Sean Dyche is very adaptable. I think right now they need somebody that's adaptable to the league and then think about maybe the long-term option. But for me, unfortunately, they have no other option. They have to go for a manager who speaks Portuguese. It's their own fault for investing in so many of the Portuguese market. It's not a problem. The Portuguese market is good. But it's their own fault for investing in so much that they have to go for somebody who's Portuguese. But they're not going to get the best Portuguese managers. They're not going to get Sergio Conchal. They're not going to get Ruben Amorim. So they're going to have to look elsewhere. And if anything, they're humped. Like they're just generally humped. So yeah, for me, Josh, bad decision and horrible decision altogether.
Just to ask you a very quick question, a very simple yes or no to this one, if possible. Steve Cooper said that the reason why Forest are doing so bad at the moment is because this team has not gelled, because obviously they went out and signed a whole new team plus bench for players. So it's a very simple. Will this team eventually gel and pick up points, or are Nottingham Forest doomed and going back to the Championship?
I think it'd be too little, too late.
Yes, I agree with that as well. I think you can't afford to waste this many games in the Premier League, and unfortunately, when you start picking up points, they're not going to. Other teams are not going to. They're not going to pick up the amount of points to make up the difference. So yeah, I think too little, too late as well.
Yeah.
For me, I'm going to disagree, mainly
No,
because it
you
is
don't.
Steve. I know I'm coming as a Cardiff fan, but what you're going to remember is I have massive respect for Steve Cooper anyway, with respect he has to his club, and he's actually a Cardiff fan as well. Like for me, we've seen it before at his previous clubs. We've seen it at Swansea when he took a team that were expected to nearly get relegated from the Championship and nearly get promoted twice because he got them to completely gel correctly. He got the young players together. Yes, it did take time, but if you give Cooper time, allow it to gel, then when you get to the latter stages of the season around Christmas, January, then it starts to excel. I think in some aspects there, fans are being a little bit impatient, but literally just let it.
I think Nathan's internet. Nathan did reference to this before. His internet
If you
will have
expect-
problems. So
Yeah, internet as usual, it's ridiculous. You will expect them to finish like your 16th and your 17th. So, Forest fans, be patient. You've been patient for 23 years to get back into the Premier League. If you need to be patient now.
Helen, to your question about Barcelona, we will be getting on to the Champions League games later on in the stream. And we're going to talk about Mourinho. I do agree, Helen. Mourinho's not Mourinho's actually doing a really good job at the moment. He's highly
This is Mourinho's second last job, and his last job will surprise you, in my opinion.
Right, so moving on to the next game, the points were shared at Old Trafford in an early draw between Manchester United and Newcastle. Obviously, Joe Linton hit the bar back-to-back times, which probably should have scored. Probably a Stonewall penalty for Newcastle, also not given. Which watching the day, two pundits said that it was a penalty. And so obviously so did Eddie Howe. So I'm just quoting the words of the match today. They thought it was a Stonewall penalty not given to Newcastle, but we'll see what the Manchester United fans think. Manchester United, obviously Ronaldo with some interesting antics to get which one of his yellow card, which he was obviously desperate for that 500 goal because I think he's on 498 if my memory's correct. So I think he's a bit desperate for that 500 goals, but I think Manchester United had some chances, but I don't think Manchester United were great in general. Obviously, Newcastle went to Old Trafford to play for a point and they got exactly what they wanted. So we'll start off with Reece. What do you think about the game?
Shower of shite. Like, and that's not me analysing the game. That's just what you've just said. Like, where's the whole narrative that Newcastle played well at Old Trafford? Like, they didn't. They only played well for about 40 minutes, in my opinion. Like the first half, I'll give them the first half, right? Like, they had a couple of chances. Joe Linton should have scored.
Yeah.
But in the second half, all they did was put 10 men behind the ball and just try to defend for their lives. They did nothing. We were by far the better team. Like in the second half, we had the better chances. We should have scored right at the bloody end as well. How we missed that, I've got no idea. Like Ronaldo as well. I actually think Trippier's got the wrong foot of him. I actually think that should have been a penalty on Ronaldo. And that's not just biased because I'm a United fan. I think that was generally a penalty. I think Joe Linton had some good chances as well. I'll give him credit. Like he should have scored. But overall, for the full 90 minutes, I genuinely think for the vast majority, I think we were from the 40th minute onwards, I think we were by far the better team. I think positionally, we were spot on. I thought the way we dominated the possession in the second half is exactly what Ten Hag wanted. Playing really well with the ball. There's only a few faults in my opinion. One, the pass in the second half for the midfield. It was clearly evident that Eriksen is a big miss. We just weren't really effective with the ball in and out of possession. And that was only in spells in the second half. In the first half, it was really evident that we do need another Eriksen type midfielder. But overall, by far, no, we deserve to win that game. If anything, that's 2 points dropped, in my opinion. We really should have won that game, not Newcastle.
George,
I'm probably going to be the only one that says that, but I don't care.
Well, let's see what your fellow Manchester United fan thinks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was an incredibly frustrating game. throughout. Funnily enough, actually, and this was what I was doing very obviously. Whilst I was listening to Reese, was also looking back on some of my liked tweets, because there was a tweet I saw this morning that I liked, and obviously it's still on my like ones. So it's quite easy to find, where it says, "Man United versus Newcastle. The ball was in play for 46 minutes out of 95 minutes.
Yeah,
49 minutes out of play. The referee/VAR failed to acknowledge Ronaldo's goal should have stood. Ronaldo and Sanchez should have had a penalty, and Newcastle wasting time. The
That
best
should have
league in
been
the
a goal.
world, the Premier League." Now, there are a few things I don't necessarily agree with totally, obviously, within that thing, but the fact that the amount of time the ball was out of play was absolutely ridiculous. I was even thinking as I was watching it. Obviously, I didn't know the exact amount of minutes that it was, but it was fucking ridiculous how the amount of time wasting that Newcastle did. It really was. That above all things, that was the most annoying thing, was how much time was actually being wasted, and it was absolutely criminal level of time wasting. And that, as I said, that's sort of my number one point from this match, is that it was disgusting. I think Newcastle really did try and obviously get the points in the first half. They were more attacking, but in the second half they decided to go back into their shell, and the time wasting got worse and worse and worse. Fred, that's my second point. He is a fucking waste of space. I mean, I've said it for years with him.
How is he still a Man United player? That's the thing I genuinely want to know.
Because the club won't invest in another midfielder. Like, love him or hate him, it's just a simple fact.
Exactly. The unfortunate thing for Fred is that he suffers from a failing of the two of the most basic and important skills a football has to have, which is the first touch and the ability to pass. And both of those were on showcase again. Probably one of his worst, and he has had a lot of terrible games actually over the years, but this really was absolutely atrocious. I'm also going to speak about Anthony as well, because I don't think he got much of a mention when I was sort of looking around Twitter. No, you actually, Kian, you are right. Actually, obviously, I wanted them to time waste in that match, but you are right, Kian. Being fair, Newcastle were horrific at time wasting that match as well. So they've got form for it, and yet again, obviously, the FA and the fucking referees do absolutely nothing about it.
I don't know how you can't deal with that. Like, surely, like within the league, like there should be some form of action enforced on that, because it wasn't just the time wasting as well; it was very dirty as well.
Yeah,
like it was very dirty. And
I'm assuming that comment about Wilson's while refereeing about the match today, punters thinking that it was a Stonewall penalty that Newcastle did not get, which VAR didn't even look at.
Yeah, I'll get onto that in a minute. But yeah, just very quickly, as I said, just because these obviously certain other things that I've noticed that, like I said, didn't get much attention on Twitter. Anthony, now the thing with him is that it seems to me, obviously, for 100 million euros or however much we paid for him, it seems to me that you would expect he would be able to use his right foot. I am sick to the back teeth. There were multiple occasions actually where he decided to almost like bend his body into like a contortionist in order to somehow use his left foot rather than his right. And there were two or three, there was probably more than that actually. There's probably like 4, 5, 6 opportunities where he could have hit it with his right foot, and we could have had a goal scoring opportunity, or he could have created something. And as I said, he decides to bend his entire body to hit it with the outside of his left foot, which is again absolutely criminal. I did see a few weeks ago actually that Ten Hag was supposed to be working with players on their weaker foot, but I was actually thinking that we have far too many players again who would do anything, literally almost bite their own tongue off rather than use their weaker foot. And seriously, with Anthony, it really was pissing me off. It was so bad. It was criminal again. Shaw was doing it as well actually, but like I said, I just thought I'd bring that up with Anthony because it's something I've noticed with him a lot. He just, like I said, he refuses to use his right foot. It's almost like he wants to keep his right boot nice and clean for some madcap reason. It's absolutely criminal. And like I said, no one really talked about it. In terms of the decisions, for obviously, which you wanted me to talk, the Wilson one, I don't think is a penalty. I think. Again, people obviously say that I'm slightly biased, but actually I think Gerrard just comes across him and obviously just like moves him out of the way, eases him out of the way, and Wilson takes the opportunity to go down. I've seen that plenty of times again in other matches as well, and Wilson obviously makes the most of it. And like I said, it's a simple case of shielding the ball, or shielding and obviously preventing the player going across. The most stonewall penalty though is the Sancho one. Again, obviously Sancho, I think, unfortunately, obviously does make the most of it. So that's probably why Pawson, again, obviously with his usual shittery, decides not to give it. But that's a 100% a penalty. Longstaff obviously kicks his legs, and they obviously nowhere near the ball, so that was 100% a penalty. Ronaldo's goal that probably, for me, isn't a goal. Because let's just be honest, it wasn't. They hadn't really taken it. It's a bit cheeky by him. It's a bit silly, and really, they've in many ways they've sort of made a mountain out of that. And really, the disgraceful decision obviously was the penalty for Sancho, of all of, and the even bigger disgrace was the time wasting. As I said, that sort of like that was the reason that we had so few opportunities or chances, was because the ball was in play for, as I said, about 46 minutes out of 95, which is fucking criminal. It really is, and that really should be dealt with. I think we should have won, but at the same time, the draw was probably a fairer result given the fact that we did create little. And that, as I said, that was mostly because, as I said, Newcastle, because obviously we were crap, but also Newcastle decided that they'd waste time. And as I said, obviously I've given you the stats of how many minutes the ball was actually in play, which almost sort of like makes it's almost the biggest narrative of the match. We didn't create much. Obviously, Rashford should score that header. Really, really poor. But again, obviously, we know he's not very good in the air. That's just a fact with him. And yeah, I mean, unfortunately for us, it's not a too bad a result because obviously Newcastle are a good team, and they will take point. They can take points off anyone. But it's frustrating in the sense that we probably did need that win. Obviously, with a couple of tough matches coming up. I think we've obviously got Spurs and Chelsea. Which are not necessarily matches that are going to be that straightforward, shall we say. And the very final thing, actually, I think this probably will be the final thing. We obviously brought in Benny McCarthy as a striking coach. Actually, obviously I'm not even going to talk about Eric Ramsey, but just in a quick aside to say he's fucking shit as well. And yet again, on set pieces, we were woeful. Obviously that Joe Linton double header was from a set piece, which again, Eric Ramsey, he useless fucker, that a set piece coach, worst fucking coach at the club, and that's saying something. But what I would say, like I said, Benny McCarthy, just as a quick thing, Man United have scored the fewest amount of goals of the Premier League top 10, apart from I think it's in Bournemouth or someone. There's one other team that have got fewer goals than us, but obviously McCarthy was the big striking specialist, striking coach that came in. Lots of people sort of heralded his.
It made no sense to me.
In the sense that he was a bang average. He was bang average at best as a striker. And
I'd say bang average at Blackburn, but it was quality at Porto. Mind you, that's because you have Mourinho in charge.
But it just sort of sums us up, really, as we always have this thing of where we're like heralding these new coaches. Like, for instance, we did it the same with Eric Ramsey as well. But when he first came in, everyone was like, "Oh, great, a set piece coach," and he's proved fucking useless. And the proof again is in the pudding with McCarthy, because our strikers are shot shy and also conversion shy. And that is almost our biggest issue at the moment. We've got so many others as well, obviously, but the single biggest issue at the moment is lack of goal scoring. We don't create much, but at the same time also we don't convert chances. Obviously that Ammonia game, which we might or might not get into, probably won't have time, but fucking, what was it, 35 shots or whatever the hell it was before we finally scored?
33 shots we had, and then we eventually scored in the 34th. I still think we finished on 37 shots, which is it's the most in the Europa League before any team's ever scored a goal. Like in history.
And basically, obviously, there was a lot of sort of thing about that match actually after it, and someone was said, "Well, was it the fact that goalkeeper was so good, or is our forwards are shit?" And I said, "No." At the time, I said, "No, our forwards are shit." And yet again, the Newcastle game comes, and yet again, our forwards are shit. We really do.
Bless Maze for this, because she hates Newcastle more. There's Liverpool, and then she just fucking hates Newcastle. Bless her dearly.
Yeah, Keane, you have to give credit to the only keeper, but at the same time, it's always, even in those circumstances, like even for instance, if you go back to when De Gea had that miracle game against Arsenal a few years ago, it's still the strikers' hands somewhat to actually score. And for us, like I said, the Newcastle game again proved it. We just have a very poor. We do badly need a striker, someone who's got a much better conversion rate. Martial, obviously, we can't rely on, or was injured. I saw a post today actually that was on their flight back on an aeroplane. Someone had captured him when, not on the actual pitch or anything, which is where we need him to be. But yeah, we do need a striker. We need quite a few players, but it's just a real struggle. And unfortunately, we've obviously fallen behind, and we're now probably going to need to beat both Spurs and Chelsea to try and claw back a few points and try and get into top four. So yeah, frustrating match overall.
I think we are fortunate though, and this is not to wind Josh up, but this is just a fortunate. Our record though in the past couple of years against Chelsea, even like with Tuchel, Lampard, etc., like in charge of them, we have actually had a very decent record against you in the past couple of years. Whether it's like in terms of avoiding defeat, whether it be like getting like even if it's a draw or where Chelsea are forced to come behind, or getting some decent wins. The only major defeats we've actually had against Chelsea in recent years was probably that FA Cup semi-final. But that's probably it.
There was the 4-0, which was I call the Smalling game, where he was at fault for all 4 goals.
That was a while back. That was a long way back. I mean, just in general circumstances, like in like the past, I'd say a couple of years, like in general, like, we have had some very decent results against Chelsea. I think we'll be fine. The one that I'm not so sure about, just because it's an unpredictable manager against us, is Conte's Spurs. Like, we've not had the best of records against Conte. So I'm actually worried about how we do it. But I think, considering the fact that we have got the pace to get in behind Spurs, I think we might be able to nick a 1-0 win. I'd actually take a 1-0 win, even if it's like a 90-minute winner. I really don't care. But it's just Chelsea. I probably would agree with Maisie on that one. I think we will get a draw. I'd say maybe 1-1 or 2-2. There always seems to be goals in the games against Chelsea, but I think Spurs will probably nick it. I think we'll get 4 points, like out of 6 in the next 2 games.
Right, moving on, sort of you, Nathan. Arsenal come away with Ellenwood with 3 points, but my goodness, they were lucky. From a missed penalty from Patrick Bradford to Leeds missing chances beyond chances. This is a game that I don't even think Leeds should have drew. It's a game Leeds should have won.
Yeah, it quite surprised me how good Leeds were in that game, to be honest. I mean, the stats don't lie at all. Arsenal, they had the ball, but they just weren't prolific enough with it. Not creating enough leads. Jesse Marsh set him up on the counter-attack. They played it really well. And yeah,
exactly.
They just absolutely matched Arsenal, to be honest. And it still riding top of the league, still grinding out the results they are. But if they play like that against other sides, especially above them, Arsenal are going to struggle. And before you know it, they'll be off top spot. So yeah, Arteta needs to go back to the drawing board after this one and say, look, yes, you got the victory, but you continue playing like that, we're going to drop down. They need to be careful. But at the end of the day, league's looking promising. Marsh is setting them up based on team by team by team. If he needs to play possession football, he'll play possession football. If he needs to go on the counter-attack, he'll go on the counter-attack. And that's why Leeds have been pretty all right as of late. They are dying out for a win, though, because, well, only 2 wins this season. Started off flying, but they've lost 3 out of their last 5. So, yeah, they need something.
George, I think Arsenal were lucky. See, just to go on my point, because I want to get your thoughts on this. Obviously, at the very end of the game, there was a whole situation with Bamford and Gabriel. Now, obviously, originally Gabriel was given a red card and a penalty was given to Leeds. But then after looking at VAR, they decided to give the free kick to Arsenal and then give a yellow card to Gabriel. Now, what I think overturning the penalty was the right decision because Patrick Bamford does push Gabriel in the first place, which would lead to a free kick. But I still think Gabriel should have been a red card because it's a kick out after the original foul, which for me is still a red card. He still kicks out, which would be in that case an awful ball incident. So I think it was a right and wrong decision there. I think Gabriel should have still been sent off for an awful ball incident, along with the right free kick being given. So George, what did you think of the game and obviously that decision at the end?
I'll deal with the decision first, obviously, because that's what you were speaking about first. Part of me obviously wants to play devil's advocate and say, and also because I wanted Arsenal to drop points, yeah, that's definitely a penalty and definitely a red card. But actually, I agree with your assessment as well. I think that's the exact right thing, which is that it was a free kick, obviously, because he committed the infringement first rather than a penalty. But that also should still have been a red card because, again, obviously he was the one that he sort of kicked out horrifically, and fuck knows why. Actually, I was thinking in this weekend of terrible refereeing decisions, of which there were so many, why the hell has he rescinded the red card and reverted back to a yellow card? I've got absolutely no. Again, only God knows what's going on in that man, in another referee's mind. terrible decision. Obviously didn't see the match, but obviously, because I was watching the Man United match, albeit obviously as Doug said, there was that sort of 35-minute delay because of some bullshit technological thing, which just again sums up the Premier League really. While they sort of powered it back up, amateur hour again. But yeah, Leeds had a lot of opportunities. Obviously, Bamford screwed his penalty wide horrifically, but also, of course, there was the disallowed goal, which again I thought was very, very harsh. It was kind of one of those things where you think, I think just because obviously, I think in a normal phase of play that's probably not a foul, but because a goal scored straight away after, they're like, oh god, yeah, it must be a foul. So it's one of those sort of situations where again, what's happened straight after it, impacts whether it's given or not. So. But for me, again, obviously, primarily because I wanted Arsenal to drop points, I was thinking, no, that's absolutely fine. Wave, play on. That's a goal. But Leeds had a lot of opportunities. But, as I always sort of say, pretty much every single podcast, it all comes down to sort of strikers that are going to score you goals for teams. And again, obviously, Leeds they have Bamford, but again, he's not really prolific.
No, he's not good enough for the Premier League for me.
Yeah, and obviously that's the sort of thing is that when you need a striker to score goals, especially against a team like Arsenal, who obviously Saka, good goal, punished obviously the Rodrigo mistake, but you do need someone to score goals, and that Leeds are guilty of themselves really, because they should have won. If they'd had a decent striker or someone to put the ball in the back of the net properly, they should have won that match, and Arsenal would have lost. But obviously, overall, as my final sort of thing, phenomenal weekend for Arsenal. 4 points clear at the top of the Premier League table. And yet again, obviously, their invincible record that they always bang on about is safe for another season because of what happened in another match which we'll speak about. So, fantastic weekend for Arsenal. And what I would say is that Arsenal have won quite a few games this season where they've been the better side. But obviously the secret of being champions, or at least coming close to it, is always winning when you're playing ugly, or winning when obviously not playing well when you are the worst team, and that's what Arsenal have done. Whether they can keep it up, I doubt. But obviously it's a good result, and now over a quarter of the season gone, so it's positive signs for Arsenal really.
He's like a live comedian just sitting in the chat there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you all a Premier League game each,
really?
and then we're going to finish.
I'm not getting to slag off Leeds.
Nope. What do you call it? Nathan didn't speak about Man United because there's so much to talk about. I can't give you everything we can talk about. So
all I was going to say, by the way, is I think Leeds are missing the trick. I think even though they're stupidly playing him as a 10, I think Rodrigo should be playing as a 9 and play Aronson as the attacking midfielder. I think they're missing the trick. I play Rodrigo up front.
So you're all going to get a Premier League game each, and then we'll finish it off with the big Liverpool-Manchester City game because it deserves detail. So I'm going to go down to Nathan about because Nathan has some thoughts about these 3 teams: Fulham and Bournemouth drawing 2 each at a good old Greenwood Cottage. A very good game actually, but I think Bournemouth pretty much had 2 shots on target, and pretty much got 2 goals. What do you make about this? Obviously, Fulham have impressed quite early on, even though they've suffered a couple of defenders. Obviously, they're heavily reliant on Mitrovic. Obviously, Bournemouth, under Gary O'Neill, still currently interim manager doing okay, but obviously, as you probably learned very well, interim managers don't always work out to be the permanent long answer. Do you see these 2 teams now staying up, considering how they've done this season, or do you see any of these 2 teams fall apart?
Personally, for me, Fulham 100% staying up. They have been absolutely superb this season. In fact, I'm going to go out and say they should have won this game, to be honest. They seem like far the better team. Just dominated on the ball. Yes, their shooting needs to improve. Mitrovic scoring yet again. Issa Diop, absolutely superb. Cabano Pereira, excellent again. Dan James, Reese's favourite player, just made runs. That's it as usual. But it's really strong, to be honest. The only thing that absolutely blows my mind, which I've said week after week, is why on earth is Mbabu on the bench when you're playing Bobby Reid at right back? For me, that's complete lunacy because Bobby Reid just cannot defend at all. And
Mbabu's got pace to burn.
Exactly. He's just so, like, we saw it in the Bundesliga, so underrated, good, solid defensively, and he's just there. Like, Bob, really, come on. Like, even with likes of Harry Wilson coming on, they've got so much strength on the bench. Kenny, Shane Duffy on there as well, Carlos Vinicius, Willian. They've got so much for them. And to be fair, Willian at Fulham is a great match, to be honest. Like, yes, he is starting to drop off in his career, but for Fulham, he has great squad depth. Yes, he's not starting week in, week out, but he's offering it. Like, there's a lot to be positive about Fulham. Whereas Bournemouth, they're doing okay under O'Neill, but the second that they offer him the permanent job or give it to someone else, I think they're really going to drop off. Going forward, they're great, but defensively, it's a bit suspect for me. I think they just need another strong centre-back partnership. Metham does worry me at times, including Fredericks and Smith at the full-backs. I think they just need a little bit more quality there. And aside from your Kiefer Moores and your Junior Stanislas's on the bench, that's about it with squad depth, really. If Bournemouth go on a bit of an injury crisis, then they're going to drop like a stone and they're going to struggle to get wins, to be honest. Fulham should have had it for me. Bournemouth, never good showing, but they very well, both of them could stay up. But Fulham, I think they've got it this season, unless something drastic happens.
Moving over to Reese, West Ham get a draw at St Mary's 1 each. Southampton took Southampton just cannot hang on to a lead. Southampton really just cannot hang on to leads. West Ham picking up a bit of form and have moved themselves away from the bottom three. Another controversial referee decision regarding Gerrard Bowen, who apparently infringed, who the referee potentially infringed from getting the ball on the Southampton goal. So I want to hear your opinions on that. But also just your opinions on this game and West Ham and Southampton in general.
Yeah, well, obviously this was on when the United game was on. I actually had this one on the background because I just wanted to see how Southampton go. Because obviously I've been very critical of Southampton recently, because obviously I do like watching them play as a neutral. So as in that sense, I think being critical in that sense is important. I actually agree with the decision to give it as a goal, because if anything, the referee, yes, he might be in Bowen's vicinity, but he's not actually touching him. He's not actually directly affecting. For goodness sake, Doug. Like, he's not he's not actually affecting Bowen. Bowen should be able to move from the referee in that position. If anything, like, there's nothing you can physically do there. I was listening to Michael Owen actually cry, bitch, and complain about it, saying, "Oh, he's impeding Bowen," and then he was moaning about the throw-in. Well, his studs are on, like, behind the line, so it's already in play. Like, it's legal. You cannot disallow that goal as well. I think one thing as well is, obviously we spoke about West Ham lately in terms of their form. They're playing really well. They're finally getting back into their stride. Selection's been key for David Moyes, like, getting that. I think if he really hadn't been smart with his selection, it definitely would have went to haunt them. I think a lot of people would have had West Ham to batter Southampton. I didn't. I had this quite a close game, really. I actually had West Ham just to edge this one 2-1, personally. But I'm kind of glad Southampton at least got a point, because they are a decent side when they actually turn up in games. I thought one thing that really was poor in the game was the substitutions by both managers. I think both managers realistically didn't get the substitutions right throughout the game. I think Hasenhüttl made too many defensive changes when he should have went for the kill. I think Southampton, if they had a good counter-attack, could have got the win. But I think David Moyes also, I felt like he's like towards the end of his Everton days, where he decided to just go for the defensive structure. I think with West Ham on the bench, I think West Ham as well should have went for the kill. But no, I think in the end, I think a 1-1 draw was a fair result. But I disagree with the commentary about. I disagree with the commentary regarding the impediment on Bowen. It wasn't for me. That was a clear goal for me. I completely agree with that. And two, on the back of the comments here from the lads in the live chat, I think Hasenhüttl's got a couple of months, and then Hasenhüttl's walking. I think Hasenhüttl goes back to the Bundesliga in January.
Okay, moving on to George. Chelsea come away from Villa Road with a 2-0 win. but it was a game that Aston Villa richly probably dominated in chances and possession. Though Kepa pulled out some incredible game, which I thought Kepa did have that in him. Kepa, something like especially on Danny Ings, a blank save header was absolutely incredible goalkeeping. But the facts are the facts. Chelsea incredibly lucky. Also, Tyrone Mings forgot how to head a ball, and Lautaro Martinez, who really makes us stay completely wrong-footed on the goal. So 2 lucky goals for Chelsea, and the luck to knock Aston Villa's way.
Yes, Emi Martinez, not Lautaro.
Sorry, he's the striker did from Milan. My bad.
Yeah, you probably got stuck on that thing of I don't know if you saw his magical touch that they were showing on repeat. They were showing that incredible touch by Lautaro. But yeah, you are fully right. I'd actually sort of forgotten about. Obviously, didn't see the match, but again, watched the highlights. I think. Yeah, I was astounded actually watching Kepa because I was like, "What the heck's happened to him?" He suddenly turned into like prime Peter Schmeichel, which is just is absolutely typical for Chelsea, really. Obviously, as we sort of spoke about when I was again sort of predicting them top 4, somehow again, no matter how poorly they play, they just grind out these results, and that's why you've always got to have them sort of in consideration for top 4 with Chelsea because they always sort of seem to go under the radar. You know, a lot of people talk obviously about Arsenal because, of course, they going ahead at the top of the table. Man City and Liverpool, of course, because of what their teams are and how well they've done in the last few years. Tottenham obviously always get good airtime with Conte. United because we're the biggest club. But yeah, Chelsea always sort of fly under the radar a bit, and that's probably quite beneficial actually for Chelsea because they can just sort of rack up the points while other sort of teams are sort of looking at one another. But yeah, as you said, obviously Mings. All I could think of when he made that error, because again, obviously on the particular platform I was watching the Man United match on, they always cut in with the goals, and I was like, "What the fuck has happened here?" As he, obviously as an England fan, I'm like, "Please God, don't take Tyrone Mings," because if he has any sort of impact on any match, it's going to be either for a stupid clearance like that or giving away a penalty or some other hideous error. So that's all I could think as he did that. And obviously,
Tyrone Mings for the clearance against Iran, and then some volleys into his own net.
Lovely. Make sure he starts against Wales, please, as well. Let's have a nice Bale free kick outside the box,
Mount obviously profits, and then even on the free kick, actually, I thought obviously Emi Martinez. It's a difficult one actually because obviously like I said, when it cut through obviously with the stream before the broadcaster I was watching it cut through with that free kick goal at the time, sort of the angles they were showing at, I was thinking, yeah, it's definitely Emi Martinez's fault. But actually, when I sort of watch it back from behind the goal scorer behind Mount for that free kick, that actually was a very good free kick. The ball did swerve incredibly well, and obviously the placement and everything was actually excellent. So I think maybe he could have done slightly better, but actually it was more about Mount's strike. And so to be fair to him, so that was a very good strike. Obviously Mount probably brimming with confidence after the first goal. But yeah, a very positive result for Chelsea. Ultimately, they're going to be, it's just, another win. And yeah, looking forward obviously to playing Man United at some, very, very shortly. But I think from Chelsea's point of view, again, it's good for them to get sort of lots of other goal scorers because again, I still think they're maybe lacking, again, that sort of killer instinct. Sterling, like I've always said about him, he was particularly guilty with missing a few chances. Obviously, when he was playing for Man City, he gets what, like about 5 times the amount of chances you get any other club. So it always looked as though he was doing very well there, but he does miss a lot of chances. So yeah, good for Mount to obviously get the goals and ultimately a very pleasing result for you, Josh, obviously, and for Chelsea overall, because again, obviously it means more points and, they're firmly cemented somehow, even after sacking Tuchel and bringing a new manager, somehow you're still cemented in top 4, which just shows that, again, they probably shouldn't have sacked Tuchel because there was never really a crisis at Chelsea. So,
yeah. I also think Chilwell was lucky to escape a red, but hey-ho.
And if we're moving on to Spurs beating Everton 2-0, this was an absolute fest of a game. A game that I generally hit a watch. I think Everton obviously went. I think Everton were those as the game plan. The football game plan I've seen out of this week. They had no intention of attacking Spurs whatsoever. Spurs were. I think Basuma changed that game completely when he came on. Just very quickly, do I rip Bally? I absolutely love the guy. See when he came on second. See when he came on second half. completely just made that defense much. The whole the whole Cucurella thing at left centre back was. Nah, it was not. It didn't work. Koulibaly was definitely a far better choice than keep Cucurella away from centre back. But yes, back to the Spurs game. Spurs are ugly, but so we changed the game. I mean, this substitution impacted the game massively, but not only are Spurs ugly, they have not much depth in those attacking positions. And now for Charles out for a few weeks. They've only got Son and Kane up there, and if one of those two get injured or suspended, the options are quite bleak for Spurs. So, what do you give this team? They're getting on. They're getting on very, very well, but they're extremely ugly. Do you think this will catch up to them?
I don't think so, no, because they're growing out results, to be honest. I will say Everton were absolutely atrocious. 0 shots on target, 38% possession. Spurs just held the ball. Everton not playing like Everton in their principles that they usually follow. They were just absolutely dreadful. Harry Kane, the diving disaster, literally a gust of wind. He'll be on the floor. There goes a penalty. I mean, just talking about Everton as well, 5 at the back. Coleman, just so defensive and negative. Like technically 1, 2, 3, 6, you could say 7, nearly 8 defensive players on that pitch. They were going for the draw in that one. It was a complete disaster. Excellent 2 goals for Spurs in that one. But the thing I will say is there's one very, very quiet flop of the season that doesn't get talked about much this season. Richarlison, absolute flop this season. 10 games, 0 goals. Why isn't that being talked about?
Because he's absolutely entertaining. That's why.
No, it's true. But
you can't hate entertainment. Like, that's the fun thing. You can't hate entertainment.
He'll still start up front for Brazil in the World Cup.
That's true.
Yeah, he will. He will. Gabriel Jesus will be sitting on the bench going, I might as well start a side hustle. How many fit birds can I get in the stadium for tickets? Oh wait, that's already been done by former pundits.
Okay. So the other game I'm going to last nil. I think Leicester should have won that game. They had the chances to win it, but Leicester just don't know how to manage the chances. And Crystal Palace are starting to hit this bit of rough form at the moment. They're not performing particularly well, but they'll be fine. They're that type of team are going to have rough and good patches throughout the season. So let's get on to the big game: Liverpool and Manchester City. Obviously, Liverpool did become 1-0 victorious in this game. First of all, I'm going to speak my very opinion on this game. First of all, I think Pep Guardiola once again has overfought a massive game. He tried playing some free at the back system where he just left the 3 central defenders of City against the front three of Liverpool and decided to play Foden against Salah with 2 wide wing backs, which I thought was a disaster. The midfield was completely overran, and they were leaving so much gaps for Liverpool to play in. I don't think the wingers were direct enough because James Milner was never really tested, defensively at right back, which I thought Milner was going to struggle, but actually he did quite well. But I think City's game plan played a part into that. I thought the whole defensive plan around Haaland and it was quite good. I think Haaland did have chances, but I think Liverpool did well enough to mitigate any clear-cut chances because he was making good runs and he was getting into good positions, but I thought Liverpool marshalled that as well as they possibly could. And the counter-attack was right. I do agree. I think the decision to overturn City's goal was correct. It was a clear tug of the shirt of Fabinho. I don't know how Pep can have it. I don't know how Pep has anything against that. It was a clear foul. If that went the other way, he would be saying that was a foul all day long. I do think Liverpool deserve to win. Diego Jota, if he was not as shit as he is, Liverpool probably could have scored 2 or 3 goals. He missed 2 clear-cut chances, and then he also mucked up a perfect counter-attack. And City only had some half chances, didn't really offer that much. And I think Pep's in-game management as well, like only subbing on Alvarez when the 87th minute was just ridiculous when they had Jack Grealish and Mahrez on the bench. Didn't try to change anything in that in mid-game. So I think Pep Guardiola overfought it. And again, this is why I don't think they'll win the Champions League with Haaland, because if you stop Haaland, I don't think Pep has another game plan at the moment. So yes, I'm interested to hear all your thoughts. To start off with you, George.
Yes, actually you summed it up quite nicely. I think this game was one that I did have fears for Liverpool when I saw the team lineups. Gomez and Milner, I don't particularly rate. When I sort of saw them in the defence, I think Milner had been looking quite leggy and quite almost like a horse fit for the glue factory this season in particular. So, and Gomez as well. I think he's sort of like he's quite lucky in a sense that Trent gets a lot of the criticism when actually Gomez is quite poor as well often. But as I said, I always do this with all players and all teams when they do well, or vice versa. Obviously, I'll always be fair in my plaudits and criticism. What I would say is that Milner was fantastic, and so was Gomez. And as you sort of said, Josh, the key to dealing with Haaland really is to limit his service, and that's what Liverpool did excellently. That obviously everyone's sort of talking about Haaland as this robot, this machine. He is an incredible finisher in terms of obviously conversion rate and all the different sort of ways that he can score goals. But he's not a prime Ronaldo and not a prime Messi. He's not able to create something out of nothing. He is reliant on that service. And if you don't allow him the service, he can't affect the game. He can't score. And he's almost like a fish out of water, sort of sitting up front and lacking that oxygen, or lacking the ammunition really to hurt.
It's Liverpool. Like Erling Haaland in the nicest way when he doesn't score goals. It's like watching a Magikarp trying to win a battle. it's just splashing on solid rock. You're going nowhere. You may as well switch out. That's Erling Haaland.
You're trying to get it to a bowl to a Gyarados, yeah.
Exactly. The man knows.
Whatever. Yeah. So that's good. That's a good reference actually. But so Haaland, as I said, he did have a few opportunities. What I would say, obviously, that Kevin De Bruyne is an incredible passer. The boy he really is. Definitely top 10 in the world. I don't think he's. I think I'll always say that number one is passer in the world is Pogba, but De Bruyne is right up there as well. That cross that for the first half to Haaland was absolutely sumptuous. Like was almost begging to be headed in, and which Haaland obviously did head, but couldn't quite steer it past Alisson. So. But overall, like I said, they did limit Haaland to few and far between chances. There was obviously the disallowed goal, which you spoke about, Josh, and ultimately I totally agree with you. It was a foul. Haaland did have hold of Fabinho's shirt and did drag him down. We also know as well with Haaland as well, you have to sort of, it's slightly unfair, but you do have to consider what players are involved in it. And what I would say is with Haaland is he is built like a brick shit house. And also, not only that, but he is strong as an ox. And when Haaland's pulling your shirt, you are going to go down, unfortunately, unless you yourself are massive as well. You are going to go down because he is incredibly strong. We already saw, I think it was against Wolves, wasn't it, where he was just pushing some defender, like getting him away, which was one of the funniest moments of the season. So, yeah, it was definitely a foul. On the goal itself, for me, Alisson is the best keeper in the league. Unfortunately, I watched Liverpool quite a lot and wishing Liverpool to lose, but on this occasion, actually, I was wanting them to do well because I fucking hate Man City as well. And you don't want either Liverpool or Man City to win the league again, really, if we can help it, because I'm sick of either of them winning it. So it was good for Liverpool to sort of put the cat amongst the pigeons with this win. But yeah, incredible pass out by Alisson, really, and that's the sort of thing. A lot of people sort of go on about how, and I do criticise De Gea a lot, but it's because I see keepers like Alisson or Edison or any other keeper really, that most other keepers are able to distribute like that. And it was absolutely phenomenal, game changing. And when you've got a goalkeeper that can sort of, turn defence one moment into an attack and create an assist like that, that is such an incredible weapon. It does change your entire philosophy, all your tactics and everything. So keepers almost for me is almost the most important position on the field. Which, again, is probably a view not shared by many. But like I said, that, in the modern game, the way that obviously the keepers have become into this almost outfield player and starting attacks and, preventing goals and so forth, they are such an integral part of modern day games. But yeah, Liverpool were good for that, as you sort of said. Jota, again, I mean, I've spoken about Jota many times and said he's shit, and I'll probably never will change from that. He is a very poor player in terms of his work on the ball. But like I said, obviously on Doug's post-match stream yesterday, what I would say with Jota is he is a willing runner, and he's one of those players again who does a lot of good off-the-ball work when defensive work. So that's probably what sort of Klopp sees in him. But in terms of when he's on the ball, he's neither clinical nor is he assured, in my view. And then again, the other player I want to speak about, just my very final point, is Darwin Núñez. He again, I say this about a lot of big players, is that they just struggle with the lack of finesse. And he's another one of those sort of examples where he's very rash. He makes poor decisions, and again, he had not only Jota have opportunities for Liverpool to extend their lead or score in other opportunities, but so did Núñez multiple times. And again, he decides to shoot when he should be passing. He decides to blaze over. He decides to do all sorts of stupid stuff. Still relatively young though, Núñez, so they'd hope they'd work that out in him, but yeah, it's not necessarily working out for him at the moment. And he, again, if we're sort of talking, obviously Nathan was speaking about Richarlison being a flop. I think Núñez is sort of knocking on that door a bit at the moment as well.
I agree.
I don't necessarily think that he's quite worth the amount of money that that Liverpool have really paid for him. But there's obviously still plenty of the season left to go for him to prove his worth in a Liverpool team that does seem to have rediscovered its magic. And in particular, what I would say, I know I will be one of the first people to sort of criticise Salah when he's doing poorly. But what I would say is I saw against Rangers that there was those elements of magic in that hat trick that he scored, and I thought he's really sort of rediscovering his confidence in his form, which he showed sort of like last year about this time. And that goal was phenomenal. It really was. It's just exactly what you want from a player when you're only going to have one opportunity like that. Obviously, Edison had saved brilliantly from his other opportunity, but he didn't make any mistakes in that second one. And João Cancelo, again, I speak very highly of him often. He could do better, but it's just absolutely sensational, outrageous, world class from Mo Salah, and Liverpool are deserved winners. And again, like I said, it's really making the title race slightly interesting, albeit we're still in autumn, and no doubt by springtime, Man City will be miles clear again. But at the moment, it has made it slightly more interesting. So yeah, phenomenal game. Very much enjoyed watching it, and good win for Liverpool.
Nathan, what was your thoughts on the game?
To be honest, the only thing I have to cover, because I know you guys have mostly covered it, is Man City. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you change it, you've broke it. That's exactly what happened to Pep Guardiola this weekend. Like, Ake Diaz and Akanji just didn't work at the back for me. And at the end of the day, the lack of wingers distinctly ruined Haaland's supply. Like, playing De Bruyne and Gundogan just behind him as two central attacking midfielders just didn't work at all. Set up way too defensively. I don't know what he was thinking, to be honest, when he knew that Liverpool were going to go for the 4-2-3-1. And yeah, what an absolute disaster it was. It's all on Pep's fault. And if they would have set up in the formation that they usually would have, not in the back five, I think they would have run away with it, Man City. But yeah, Darwin Núñez, flop of the season by far for me, is atrocious.
And Reece?
Didn't watch the game.
you must tell us again.
I was busy watching El Clasico.
No,
I was busy watching the best utility player in world football tear the world's worst defense apart. So yes,
we will be getting on to Barcelona and Real Madrid in our next segment. So that does cover all the Premier League games from the past weekend. I think there was some really boring games, such as I think Chelsea and Fulham wasn't particularly exciting. Newcastle United wasn't particularly exciting, but that Liverpool City game, I think, was probably one of the best. That could be the best game of the season, because that game was just ridiculously good. But as I said, I think Pep Guardiola overthought that game, and that guy just cannot stop overthinking. And I think his in-game management is one of the worst, out there. I just think he's just lucky enough that he's got the talent to actually win games ahead. So before we move on to the next segment of which is the Champions League games, we're going to be doing our predictions for the midweek Premier League games that are coming up. So I'm 99% sure, so we'll have to correct me wrong, I think all of these games on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday are on Amazon Prime. Could be wrong.
They are,
I think it is Prime Video's midweek game. So let's get cracking on the predictions, starting with Brighton and Nottingham Forest. George?
I wasn't expecting you to come to me. Well, to be honest with you, Reece has got a new friend as well.
Aye, meet Bella, or as I call her, bitch. Because she's a fucking nightmare. She loves my work chair and my cables. But at least my tassels will keep her distracted. So keep going. Honestly, I'm still listening. Like, I'm still listening, obviously, but she's a bastard.
So yeah, I think with Brighton Forest, I think that's going to be relatively easy for me to predict. Brighton are going to win.
That's Dark Dick. That's Cool George, and that's the Welsh one that we don't talk about. I'm just kidding.
Obviously, Keaton's gone 3-0, but I think Brighton win is probably the easiest thing to predict because Forest are in absolute dire straits. I think I'm going to go. I think I'll go 1-0 Brighton. And the reason I'm going to go 1-0 Brighton only is because I know what Brighton are like. Is always that team that just knock on the door and never fucking score. So I'm just going to go a 1-0 victory for Brighton. It's my prediction.
Nathan?
Quite a bold one. I think Forest are going to get into this game, get a bit of confidence. I'm going to go 1-1 draw. I'm impressed with Brighton since Potter's left.
And Aries.
I'm going to go shock result of the season to date. I'm going to go 2-0 Nottingham Forest.
Okay. Well, you're doing one goal for Forest, so.
But I'm going 2-0 Nottingham Forest, but both goals are actually either set-piece blunders or own goals. I don't think Forest actually score because I don't think Forest actually have the tools up front, like in terms of firepower. I think they'll force chances, but the chances they do make. I think one thing Forest are actually a bit unfair of in terms of like when people watch them is they do make good chances. The problem is they just do not have anybody that actually has the instinct to just fucking put the ball in the back of the net. I don't think they actually have it, but they do make some good chances. I think one thing they need to do as well, they need to get Lingard involved. Lingard against a team that plays high, especially a high line, even though he's not the best player in the world, he's one of the best pressers in the Premier League. Like, I think that's one thing he actually deserves a bit of. I think I very rarely praise Jesse Lingard because obviously he was a dick in his last couple of years at Man United. But if there's one thing I always, will you fucking behave? The one thing I always credit Jesse Lingard for is his pressing ability. I actually think if Lingard starts, Forest do win this game.
Next game is Crystal Palace hosting the Wolves, and I'm going to imagine Wolves will obviously still come out of us at this time. So, George.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually been quite impressed with Palace this season, and similarly unimpressed with Wolves. So I'm going to go with a Palace win. Again, I think Palace, will might struggle again to score goals a bit, which I've seen them do quite a lot. So I'm just going to go for a 2-1 win to Palace.
Nathan?
For me, Palace need to bounce back after that poor Leicester result. I'm going to go 2-0 Palace.
And Reese?
I'm just trying to think about. Just see, where is it? Sorry, is it at Molyneux or is it at Molyneux?
No,
it's at Selhurst Park. All right. I'm going to edge one. I'm going to agree with Doug. I'm going to go 1-0 Palace, but only just maybe a late winner in it. I don't really see anything. I think I've been in Molyneux, I probably would have said draw, but Palace are actually decent at home this year. I think they've been okay. So yeah, I'll go 1-0, but only just.
We were supposed to be treated to Arsenal to Man City, but this game got postponed due to Arsenal's outstanding game against PSV, which is going to be played on the Thursday. Obviously, that game got moved due to the Queen's.
Who won 6-1 at the weekend?
So, unfortunately, we're not going to be treated to a hell of a game because Arsenal have an outstanding game to be played. So that game will be played in due course. Bournemouth hosts Southampton, which is a huge game for both. Absolutely humongous game for them. If Southampton lose this, I think that will be absolutely tough on. George, do you see Gary O'Neill going 7 games undefeated?
I think I'm going with a draw, and I'm going to go 1-1.
Nathan?
Bournemouth playing really well at the moment. Southampton struggling in the 4-4-2, as I keep saying every week. 2-0 Bournemouth.
Reese?
1-0 Southampton.
I don't know. But I feel like Reach just goes for everything against what everyone else is saying.
Well, I did last week in a crucial Champions League game, and I'm the only one that got the result right, by the way.
True.
Brentford host Chelsea. George?
Unfortunately, I think Chelsea always, like I said, they're always going to scrape these sort of results together. So I'm trying to, obviously my heart would want Brentford to put a damaging strike into Chelsea's top four prospects. I am actually going to go with Brentford, and I'm going to say 2-1 Brentford.
Nathan?
I don't want to back the football hipsters. I'm going to have to, though. I'm going to go 3-1 Chelsea.
Reese?
Well, I was expecting you to say football hipsters for Brentford, just for the comedy.
They're both football hipsters.
Nah, I just wanted to wind you up. In this one, I'm going to go for, I think, because I watched Maisie's predictions with John on Friday, and I think my exact scoreline, I'm going to stick with it. I think I said 3-3 draw, and I'm going to stick with it. 3-3 entertaining draw. I'm going to have Brentford 3-0 up at halftime, just for fun.
Liverpool host the Hammers. George?
Yeah, I think Liverpool are going to be on a roll a bit here. I think they're going to start to motor. So
Real Madrid exist.
Yeah, I've seen quite a lot. There's quite a lot of silly decisions actually in this thing as well. And that
all I'm going to say before George gives his prediction is, how can you give the Young Ball Award to Gavi over Jamal Musiala? Scrap the award now. Scrap the award now. You've already killed it. You should have gave it to Musiala. He is the best young player in world football. Done.
So I think we're going to go for 2-0 Liverpool.
Reese?
A club I hate versus a club that like to blow bubbles. I'm going to go 1-1 draw, because you know what? Liverpool are playing really well at the minute. I'll give them that. They are playing really well, but it's the consistency of their squad, and I think Klopp. And I'm not going to blame Klopp's excuses. I'm not going to come at excuses in this sense. I'm actually just going to come at selection. I think Klopp's team selection as of late hasn't realistically worked out in the right way. It did work against City, but I just think, I agree with what everyone else was saying earlier on about Guardiola. He always overthinks, but West Ham generally do really well against the bigger clubs, they have done in recent years, and I think they will get a decent result off West Ham. So yeah, I'm gonna go for a 1-1 draw. And Bella says bye to you as well, Mace.
See you later, Macy. Thank you very much for coming in once again.
What's your mind as well? 1-0 Liverpool.
Newcastle hosts Everton.
So, like I said, obviously in the comments, I do feel sorry for Pickford quite a lot actually, because he's just constantly busy. Every single Everton game, no matter who they're playing, it's like fucking one-way traffic. And he's almost like a sort of cook in or chef in a kitchen, like trying to hold about a million pots and pans. It's absolutely unreal. A million different orders, and for that reason as well, as I said, I have been impressed with Newcastle a lot this season. Discounting obviously the time wasting that I saw into full effect, but I think they'll do that time wasting only against teams that are better than them. So I think, for obviously again. From that sort of perspective, I'm going to go for. I'm actually going to copy Doug. I wish you hadn't shown me that comment. I'm going to put 2-0, and the reason, obviously, for that is that, like I said, obviously Everton are not scoring much. But I think the reason that the score will only be 2 for Newcastle is because Pickford again will have one of these miracle games again, just keeping the score down. So 2-0 to Newcastle.
Nathan.
Well, put it this way, we are going to see exactly what Newcastle did to Brentford, and they also, I believe, did to Fulham the other week. Absolutely overload the life out of Everton with goals. I'm going to go 5-0 Newcastle.
All right, Reese.
Even George was like, shite. This is going to be an interesting one, but
Breaking news, Karim Benzema's won the Ballon d'Or.
breaking news, finally they got something right.
It's about time.
It's crazy that a lot can change in a week. Last week, Everton had the best defence in the league. Now this week, it's Newcastle. A lot can change in 7 days. That's for sure. I'm gonna go goals galore the whole way through. I'm going to go 6-3 Newcastle.
Wow.
6-3.
And Joe Linton to find his best mate again, the crossbar.
The only thing I would say is I don't know if Everton will get 3. Obviously, I can see Newcastle maybe getting 6, but I don't know who is going to get those 3 Everton goals.
The funny thing is I can see it, but only in a chaotic world that I live in. So yeah, I just have to go with what I'm feeling, gut instinct. So yeah, 6-3.
These next 3 games are absolutely massive games for everything considered in terms of where these where all these 6 teams are. So starting off with the final game on the Wednesday night, which is Manchester United hosting Antonio Conte Spurs. George?
Yeah. I think I'm always going to go, to be honest with you. I'm a bit, I always go with the Man United win no matter who we're playing. Pretty much. But I think, obviously, last season we did do the double. There were some hair-raising moments in that one. Obviously, we had a better game in the first fixture and the second fixture. Obviously, it was Ronaldo's genius, and we haven't got him to rely on this time because he's not in the best sort of form. So I am going to say we're going to win, and I'm going to say 3-1 Man United. Very similar game, I think, maybe to the Arsenal one, in which we sort of maybe kill them a bit on the counter sort of thing. In transition, so it's going to be difficult. Spurs a bit like us, actually. It could be a as I said, I'm still going to go 2-1, but it could be a really boring game. There was an interesting sort of statistic I saw, or graph I saw today, which showed that Man United and Tottenham have both got a really low defensive line. So both teams like to really sit in. So this could be a really boring 0-0, but I'm going to say 2-1 Man United.
Reese, what do you think?
I'm going exactly what I said earlier on. Fuck off. Fuck off, you dozy bitch. I'm going with exactly what I said earlier on. I'm going 1-0 United. Very cagey, and that's probably what it's going to be.
Nathan?
Theatre of Dreams is going to go back to being the Theatre of Draws. 0-0.
Moving on to Fulham hosting Aston Villa, and what I believe if Villa lose this game, Gerrard is gone. George?
Yeah, Villa. They've been. I think a lot of us maybe had a bit of some good hopes for them this season, but they've not. They've definitely not realised those whatsoever. And Fulham have sort of a real surprise package, at least in my eyes, really, with how well they've done. Obviously, Mitrovic in particular. I think there was a concern that maybe he wouldn't find the form that he has done. So, bloody hell, this is hard. I think, again, because Villa will be sort of fighting for their lives, and that's the reason, obviously, particularly for Gerrard, it's a bit difficult. But I am going to go with Fulham, and I'm going to say 2-1 Fulham.
Nathan?
Villa are going to get smashed in this one for me. Fulham, as you know, have been really impressive me. I'm going to go 3-1 to Fulham with Steven Gerrard getting the boot.
Yeah, of course.
Perfect timing.
Reese?
5-0 Fulham.
What are you on with these predictions for me? Whatever you're having, can I have something? What do you think? Jesus.
All I'm going to say is honesty is the best policy.
Do we think, though, if he loses this game, he'll get sacked? Do we think that'll be the final nail in the coffin for Steven Gerrard?
For me, well, we saw it exactly the same with Dean Smith, just complete impatience towards the end. The Villa owners couldn't take any more considering the amount of money that's been spent and the squad that they have. They're going to have no more patience after this one, especially in Steven Gerrard. So going to be a heavy loss for me, and he's going to be out the door.
And then the final game, which is a massive game, Leicester City hosting Leeds United. Both teams desperately need a win. None of these two teams will obviously. Leicester one win in 5, but only win in the season. Leeds have not won in their last 5 games, losing 3 and drawing 2. This is. I feel like I don't know why. I feel like whoever loses this game might get sacked. I don't know. I don't know Jesse Marsh.
That seems to be your favourite line tonight.
Jesse Marsh is not getting sacked.
I don't. But it just gives me that vibes. Okay. Well, for some reason, Doug's on some some Reese type shit or whatever the fuck that was. 9-0. Yeah, George, what do you think? 9-0 Leeds?
No, I think both of these teams are slightly. I think with Leeds in particular, as I sort of spoke about with regards to their match, they're very goal shy in terms of like actually converting chances. So it'd be quite difficult.
Imagine that it just came up 9-0. We were calling them goal shy. Imagine that happens.
I suspect I'm going to go for, because again, both teams actually, obviously in recent games have been, obviously when you spoke about the 0-0, and obviously for Leicester, as well as obviously Leeds having all those chances against Arsenal, both of them have struggled with converting. And for that reason, I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw. I think they'll just sort of cancel each other out. So yeah, 2-2.
I don't take hallucinogenics. Fuck you, you dick. Leeds versus Leicester. I don't see any managers getting sacked, but what I do see, however, is major changes from both sides. I do see Leicester change. I actually think Leicester. I don't know if Yeti Boy's still in the chat. I'd like Yeti Boy maybe to get his opinion on this, but I think Brendan Rodgers might change his system against Leeds, and I think that actually might be the smartest decision he could make all season. Personally, I think Leicester really need to look at how they're going to transition the midfield, and I think the best thing for them to do is change altogether. I think one thing Rodgers has not done in a long time, and it worked really well to him until he got the boot at Liverpool. I think, and even Doug will agree on this one actually as well, because obviously he's a Liverpool fan, etc. And Kian, I think Brendan Rodgers should actually go 4-3-3. Sorry, not 4-3, 3-4-3 against Leeds. I think 3-4-3, get two wing backs playing as high up as they can in the midfield 4, and then just get a front 3 right in there, pace. Harvey Barnes in there, like get him the best of it. Get Maddison involved as much as they can. I'd actually like to see this. He's fallen off like so badly, it's crazy. But
yeah,
no, I think personally, I think for them, I think they should change it up, and I'd like to see them experiment a little bit, but experiment in the right way, and go back to something that you know. And that's why I think Leicester, like this weekend, this coming game, I'd actually like to see them go for it, 3-4-3. Jesse Marsh, on the other hand, with Leeds, I think they really need to change things up a little bit. Like, I don't think it's working. I said it earlier on when we spoke about Bamford. It's Leeds' first penalty miss since they returned to the Premier League, which is a crazy thing as well. I think Bamford needs to be dropped. I think Rodrigo needs to go into the 10. Aronson needs to go... Rodrigo needs to become the number 9 again. And Aronson needs to become the number 10. I think Roja and Adams need to be at it for the get-go. It is their best midfield partnership. Sinisterra, quality player, but they're not getting the best out of him. I feel sorry for him. I just don't know. I'm going to be nice to Leicester this week. I'm going to go 1-0 Leicester. But I want to see Rodgers actually show some balls, change his system, and see if we can actually get somebody at this team, because one way or another, if he doesn't make any changes quickly, it's going to get even worse.
Nathan.
That's true. But I mean, that is true.
I really don't know what's back in this one, to be honest. Like, every time I have to back Leeds, it makes me physically sick for obvious reasons. I'm going to go 1-1 draw.
Okay, so to finish off our stream, we will be moving on go back to the Champions League. Well, not all of them, but most of the Champions League games that did take place last week. I'm going to start off with Reece. I think Reece, I don't know if you guys too did. You can tell me if you did, but obviously I know Reece for 5 did predict Juventus to lose to this Romanian side. They lost 2-0. I don't think these two did.
I said 2-1 Maccabi Haifa.
But I'm pretty sure Race was the only one who definitely said.
I think Doug did as well. I don't know. I think Doug said 3-1. But yeah, I went against Juventus.
And Juventus were just as bad as you predicted. They got completely outplayed by, let's be honest, a bunch of nobodies.
They're not. I said it last week. I don't think Juventus are even getting Europa League. I think they're going to finish fourth in that group. They are so bad. This is the worst Juventus team I've ever seen, and I remember the Juventus team that came up just after they got. I remember the Juventus team that they got after they just got promoted after the Calciopoli scandal. It still had Marchisio, it still had Del Piero, Trezeguet, Pavel Nedved, but it was bad because the team just could not gel. And then eventually, obviously, you saw it tick and change things up, but it was just that. Like, this is the worst team I've seen since then. Like, that's how bad this Juventus team is.
Okay, I thought they were. I remember looking up on live score, and it said they were Romania. So
they've got to play in Romania because of what's going on in Israel and Palestine and all that. They physically cannot play over there, but they are an Israeli team. Yeah.
So okay, I'll be whining.
Yeah.
So Juventus were absolutely atrocious. George, what do you think? Do you think Juventus are going to be playing any sort of European football come February?
I think they'll just sort of scrape into the Europa League. But yeah, it's obviously a very disappointing result. And I was more sort of like, I'm still shocked about the fact that Real Madrid somehow have become third in this fucking Club of the Year thing. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Who got second?
Liverpool. It was Man City.
Fuck
Liverpool, then Real Madrid.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
I'm
sorry.
To be fair, I'd actually, being sort of fair, obviously Real Madrid definitely should be first, but being fair, obviously the second team should have been Liverpool. I'm not quite sure how Man City have somehow snuck. I don't know how much money they and briefcases with all these millions of lawyers there to shove into, in terms of how they've won this. I've got absolutely no. It's really is poor because even by Man City standards, obviously only win the Premier League. They normally sort of pick up at least 2 or 3 trophies. So yeah, fuck knows how that's happened. But very obviously. Yeah, just absolutely incredibly shocked really by that more than anything.
Where did Milan finish in that list, by the way?
I haven't seen that. It just had the top 3. But yeah, Juventus, I still think will somehow sort of scrape through to Europa League and hopefully meet us.
All right, so obviously Copenhagen drew 0-0 from Manchester City. I think City did not really care about the game. What do you think they feel about Benfica going to PSG and getting a draw? It was a massive result for Benfica. And they held that PSG team quite well, considering how good that attack is meant to be. With obviously Neymar and Mbappe, Messi, and whoever else they don't have.
Yeah, surprising. It goes to show the amount of turmoil behind the scenes in PSG. To be honest, I didn't actually watch this game because I don't have BT Sports, but Benfica. For me, PSG went into this game with too much confidence. You can tell there's a massive rift in that squad with Mbappe's shocking attitude. Benfica just playing really well on the counter attack, and things have got to change at PSG. Too many egos. That's what you get.
Too many. Daniel Zagreb and Salzburg drew 1 each. Obviously, Reece, Dortmund, and Sevilla drawing, which I think was a big, well-needed result for Sevilla. This is a game Sevilla could not lose. What did you make of this game?
First of all, I actually called that Benfica PSG scoreline as well last week. I called it. And another game I actually got bang on will be coming on very shortly. This one, I watched this game back in full. The following day, actually, and I was impressed with Jorge Sampaoli. Like, what he done, he got it nailed down to the T with Sevilla. Like, this is what Sevilla have lacked. Like, Lopetegui, I've got no personal issue with Lopetegui. I think he's a good manager, but you can see it was like with Nuno at Wolves. It was just coming to an end. You just could not see where they go. Sampaoli, I think he's a very underrated manager. I've always liked Jorge Sampaoli. He's a very fiery, energetic manager. I'd say more brains than Bielsa because he's in similar way. Like they play the same football, but I think he's a lot smarter in terms of managing a game out. I thought Bellingham was superb, but no, I just loved the tactics of Sampioli for Sevilla the whole night. I was very impressed. I had obviously in our predictions last week, everyone had Dortmund to win. I had Sevilla to win, and if you actually look at the game back, I think Dortmund were lucky to get a draw. Oh, Doug, I'm not really. I just prefer this. And obviously they're on my wall. I've just got two brilliant cushions, but I prefer snakes. Although I don't mind a lion. I don't mind a lion if it's a rampant one.
George, Chelsea went to the San Siro 1-2-0 with AC Milan going down to 10 men.
Fuck that game.
It wasn't a red card for tomorrow, was it? Incredibly soft.
No, definite red.
Fuck off.
That was just that was my Slytherin.
You bastard.
That
was the worst decision I've seen in all the European games all week. Apart from one decision in the Rangers-Liverpool game, but that was about it.
Obviously, actually did watch this match. Was hoping that Milan would be able to do something. Obviously, the fact that there was the red card sort of changed everything. Really, there was no hope for AC Milan at that juncture. And Chelsea again. Like, I was quite tempted actually. I know obviously in the prediction I think I had it as a draw, but I was always sort of tempted again. With these with the English side.
So did I, mate. Even though we lost, I enjoyed it too.
With the English sides, you're always tempted to think they've apart from Man United, obviously, with all the sort of English sides that do quite well in European competitions, you're always tempted to sort of give them a bit more credit. And it's a brilliant result for Chelsea. Aubameyang scoring as well, of course, was a very, very good goal. But obviously the game had all sort of turned on that decision. Obviously that red, which obviously definitely wasn't one. Typical shit refereeing. I think that was what was the name of the referee? I think it was it's one of those sort of ones again that I've seen many. I've seen many times that I've always thought, oh no, it's him. There's always these certain referees that again you remember the names of when they're obviously in the matches, but you just sort of remember their faces. But very poor decision. But fantastic result for Chelsea. And I think again, obviously for you guys, Josh, that's a sort of result that's really going to sort of see you through to the last 16, because I think Chelsea now sort of pole position really in that group. So very good result, and Chelsea march on, and obviously positive for Potter as well, because he's not got much. I know obviously you said as well, Josh, when he came in, you were like, oh no, I'm not quite sure about this, because Potter's not got any sort of not got much in a way big game experience, but winning the San Siro is a fantastic result for any team. So very, very good win for Chelsea.
Shakhtar and Real Madrid drew 1-1, but I think Real Madrid are already through in that group, and it was probably a really good result for Shakhtar. So we're not looking too much into that. Reach, you're one of your German supportive team, Leipzig beating Celtic 2-0 at Parkhead. What did you think of that game?
Wrong. That's all I remember saying last week, just for pure gold. I thought I did watch bits of this game, and there's one thing that really worried. Like obviously, I was on the watch along with Doug, so I had to wait until the game was over to watch it. There was two things in that game that really worried me. If you're a Celtic fan, obviously I'm not, so I don't really care. One thing that I think for a Celtic fan that's worrying is that high line again. Ange Postecoglou is getting it wrong in Europe. I admire the consistency. I will give him this. I admire the consistency that he is wanting to take his style into Europe. Because when you actually think about dominating the possession, dominating the chances, playing high with the possession, the quick 1-2s, like the possession football, it suits European football really well. The problem is he only has 3 or 4 players in that team that you generally do it in Europe. The rest of the team generally aren't good enough to do it. And the other problem is they've got a goalkeeper who was kicked out of Man City for the fact he couldn't distribute the ball effectively in Joe Hart. Great shot stopper, and he's a very, very big human being. So he's not going to get beat easily from that perspective. But what scares, if you're a Celtic fan, what scares you is Postecoglou is constantly getting this wrong. and he is not learning from his mistakes. If he wants to do well with Celtic in Europe, he has to be a little bit more pragmatic. Whereas, as in the game at the weekend, obviously I watched the Leipzig game at the weekend because I found a brilliant website that I'm going to give to everybody later on as well for streaming. It's called Fortnite. Fortnite 24. It's actually really good for watching every single Europe football channel on the planet, and I'm not even joking. I found in total maybe 300 sport channels, so that'll definitely come in useful for you guys. The way Leipzig played at the weekend as well is similar to how they played against Celtic. They let Celtic control the possession, know where they're most effective, which is with the press, and they changed the system effectively. Celtic dominated the possession when they were at least pressing the ball, but when they were in a defensive transition, Leipzig just knew how to get them. They battered them black and blue. The pace of Werner, Silva's consistency around the box, and Kunku's just brilliant on his own. Like, that man could save a world war. Like, that is generally how good he is. David Raum, like, coming into his own, it's good to see him back in the team. Forsberg was phenomenal with and without the ball. He's generally, in my opinion, the most underrated number 10 in professional football. I generally think he is that good. Especially with his experience. You wouldn't think that the man's 30. Like, generally, that's how good he is. But it's the same thing week after week with Postecoglou. Like, it's not that Leipzig just beat them. It's how they beat them. That sort of... You can get away with it at Man City because you've got the quality, but in a group where you're fighting for a potential Europa League place, they have to be more pragmatic. Postecoglou is the reason the Celtic are going to finish fourth in the group. Not the squad. I think they've got a decent squad, even though I hate every single one of them except for Jota. Like, it's purely that Postecoglou just cannot seem to get a plan B. And if they want to get something, they've got to be a bit more pragmatic. And it's too little too late. They lost home and away to Leipzig. They're going to lose to Shakhtar again. And they're not going to get much against Real Madrid. They're going to finish bottom. Same with Rangers as well. Rangers are going to finish bottom. They're not going to do anything either. But it's just the difference of a manager that recognises a team in Marco Rose, where initially it started really well. It went a little bit hazy. They're now starting to pick up form again. The change of systems definitely benefited the wider players. But he's recognising that if you're going to go against a team that loves to play the passing with the ball, just let them have it. And then we'll just, every time they make a mistake, we'll just counter. The Celtic defence didn't know how to handle Leipzig's front four. And that is why they lost. You just could not handle that front four.
Yeah, Finn, if you only answer Doug's question when the South Wales derby is?
It's on Sunday at midday on Sky.
There we go.
No, looking forward to it.
All right, so moving on to you again, Nathan. Napoli absolutely hammer Ajax once again, 4-2. Ajax a complete mismatch from this, and Napoli's had to look really bloody good at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was what we were all predicting. Napoli just superb in Serie A, superb attack, and Ajax didn't stand a chance. So there you go.
George, another goal Madrid nil, Clubbridge nil. Clubbridge have officially qualified for the knockouts. Atletico Madrid in a game that they needed to win, they needed to score, and once again, Simeone sets up in a back five at home in a game that they needed to win. But you're probably going to stick to your point that they're still somehow going to scrape for the group in the final game of the group.
Yeah, it always happens with Atletico Madrid. I wasn't expecting them to win because that would imply that they didn't need to have these miracles in the last, at least the last match or the last couple of matches. So, it's always going to happen. Just a very quick shout out to obviously Napoli Ajax game to Daley Blind. He's a player that a lot of Man United fans always think, "Oh God, I wish we'd kept him," or "Oh, I wish he was so good, we should have kept him." No. He
was so poor in that game.
He's always been, unfortunately, he was always far too slow for the Premier League. And in this match, again, he was absolutely terrible. So, yeah, absolutely criminal, really. But yeah, in terms of obviously Atletico Madrid, keeps them alive. And like I said, I'm still anticipating them scraping through somehow. And I'll stick by that, even if it's all looking bleak in the 95th minute. Somehow they'll have some sort of pitch invasion or something will happen that'll scrape them through. So yeah, it's as I said, it keeps them in the hunt. But they'll be looking forward to the last couple of games to stage a fight back into the next round.
Bayern Munich hammered Victoria Prison again. That Victoria Prison are just literally an accurate play that you got down to grip of death. Nathan Spurs got a really, really good win against Frankfurt. I thought Spurs were incredible that game. They started like a house on fire.
Oh, absolutely.
That was a game that Spurs desperately needed to win, and you could probably see them going through the group now.
Oh, yeah, complete dominance from Spurs. They're 100% through for me. Frankfurt, they sort of offered what they could, but at the end of the day, Spurs were just too prolific, you know? So, and if it's going to get tasty, because for me, Spurs are through. It just goes down to what's going to happen for the rest of the group for me. Really don't know who's going to send it, to be honest.
I see Doug's comment. Like,
I've just looked at it. I've just seen it as well, and I'm like, no. We just won't have that result spoken about on here. We just won't.
Right, Reese. Liverpool 7, Rangers 1. Rangers are just they just can't cope with this Champions League intensity football. For the first half, Rangers were actually okay. I actually thought
we were the better team in the first half.
They did well, but the second half, Liverpool were just too much to handle for Rangers.
We were by far the better team in the first half, and I think even Doug will agree on that one. Like, it's not a disrespect to Liverpool or anything. Like, even though I can't stand them, but it's purely in the first half. Liverpool just didn't know what to do with Rangers at Ibrox. Like, they just did not know how to deal with it. But the one thing that changed the game, and I don't care what anyone says, what changed the game was the Connor Goldson injury. That scoreline does not happen if Goldson doesn't get injured. Goldson isn't a world-class centre-back, but he's a really good one. That does not happen if he does not get injured. Like, that really is unfortunate. I thought the referee at times were a bit dodgy as well. But and I'm not saying it's dodgy because obviously I'm a Rangers fan. I wanted us to beat Liverpool. I'm saying it's generally dodgy if you're watching that game as a neutral. Like, some of those decisions were very, very odd. Like, especially VAR. What the hell is VAR playing at? I'm sorry, but no.
Stupid.
Yeah, like, it's ridiculous. Like, it should never have finished 7-1. Like, not by a long shot. But I'll give Salah credit. I thought Salah played really well in the second half. I thought in the first half he was a bit iffy. Darwin Núñez, decent game. But other than that, and Firmino, the rest of them, I was not particularly impressed with the rest of them. It was just those three. I thought the rest of them just did their jobs. It was those three that really took the killer blow to Rangers. But I'm just gutted the way we lost. Like, Ryan Jack as well, getting off injured, that's another big blow as well, especially with how tight the league is, like sitting 2 points behind Celtic. Like, we just can't deal with it. Or did it? Well, that says it all. Well, that says all. I couldn't even bloody see him. But I don't. It just annoys me how VAR was in that game. It just annoyed me. Like, I don't like. I give Celtic a bit of praise, like, for how the fact that I consistently rate like the manager's ethic to stick with his football. But Van Bronckhorst in the second half got it wrong. I felt sorry for King. Like, Jesus Christ, you put a 19-year-old against this lot. What are you trying to do? End his career? Like, come on. Like, nah, that's... See for that alone, Van Bronckhorst, sack him and get Gattuso from Valencia. Like, honestly, like, he's a Rangers legend. Like, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, for what he did to King's criminal. Nah, I want him gone now. I honestly want him gone now. I want Gattuso out of that Valencia job, and I want Gattuso the new Rangers manager.
You want Van Bronckhorst sacked?
I am at that point where, even though I think he's a really good man, he's a good manager, he loves the club, he was an ex-teammate at Gattuso, I wouldn't mind Van Bronckhorst as, like, on his backroom staff. But no, I would honestly take a little bit of pragmatism off Gattuso, where I know Rangers are going to be stronger at the back, still win games, even if it's going to be at times quite edgy, quite nervy. And obviously Rangers were known for playing really good football. Gattuso plays effective football. The game they played at the weekend with Valencia was brilliant. Cavani was an example of brilliance for Valencia. I honestly hope he gets out of that job, and I want him in the Rangers dugout. I honestly do. Yeah. I don't ever often. The only manager at there's only two managers I've ever once sacked at the club. One's Paul Le Guin, bloody clown of a human being, and the other was Pedro Caixinha. They're the only two managers I've ever once sacked as a Rangers fan. Now I'm honestly painfully I'm saying I want Van Bronckhorst out.
Kane, your question about Group D is ridiculously close. I was trying to screen share to show you, but unfortunately, my screen share wasn't playable. But yes, it is ridiculously close. So two four games worth talking about. I'm going to go to you, George, on this one. Leverkusen losing 3-0 to Porto in Germany. A game that Bayern Leverkusen absolutely dominated.
Called it.
A game that Bayern Leverkusen absolutely dominated, but Porto just shit house a win, and they always seem to do this in the group stages.
Yeah, as I said, obviously that's the Atletico Madrid group, so I'm still expecting Atletico Madrid to somehow shithouse their way past Porto now. Obviously, who have taken a slight lead in that in the group standings. But for me, the main sort of taking away point I got from this was obviously from a Man United fan standpoint is that we've been linked to Diogo Costa, the Porto keeper, quite strongly this week, and. As you know yourself, Josh, obviously reading through my thread pre-season about David De Gea, I'm very, very pleased, shall I say, that we are strongly linked to a lot of keepers. Obviously, Costa's one of those. And again, obviously talking of Alisson's assist for Salah, obviously Costa again was some
brilliant assist.
Absolutely stupendous ball, the sort of ball that David De Gea couldn't even do in his dreams. If he was doing that ball, David De Gea would suddenly wake up because it was too unbelievable for him to sort of even for his imagination. So yeah, that's a sort of takeaway there, and obviously phenomenal keeper. So it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to monitor his progress, like I said, and whether he's going to be the keeper we're going for, because we're definitely in for a keeper. Obviously, Dubravka was more of a stopgap, I think, and of course he's not featured like I feared. Unfortunately, we've got him; he wouldn't do.
This is the younger version of Dubravka, except I think he's more. I actually think Costa's actually, because he's got the trophies behind him as well. He knows how to win. I generally think he is the right choice for us. Because we're never going to get like a Magnan or anything like that, which I'd be happy with. But if we get Diogo Costa, I'd be over the moon.
100%, yeah.
Okay, so the final game to talk about, this is probably the one that leads into the El Clasico as well, was Barcelona drawing 3-each with Inter Milan. Now, this was a game that Barcelona desperately need to win, because now, and this is where the big issue lies, is that if my memory is correct, that all Inter Milan need to do is beat Victoria Plzen, and then that is Barcelona into the Europa League, which you'd highly expect Inter Milan to beat that Victoria team who are completely out of their league. So Barcelona for the second straight year face going into the Europa League, and they find, and now everyone knows obviously they borrowed a lot of money when they sold their TV rights off. So them going into the Europa League is going to cause a massive, massive financial burden for them, because they desperately needed that money by going through. So this is big for Barcelona. This is financially bad for them. Obviously, on top of the fact that going to the Europa League again for the second year in a row, awful. And then obviously they got completely out there at the weekend by Real Madrid, which I'll let you speak about in a bit more detail. So Nathan, start with you. Let's face it, Barcelona, Inter Milan, as Reece will know, are typically known to collapse, but I don't think they're that bad that they're going to collapse. Victoria plays on the San Siro. Barcelona in the Europa League for the second straight year, especially considering this Inter Milan team is not that great this year.
Exactly.
Average on best. It's embarrassing to the fact that Barcelona are going to be in the Europa League again this year.
It is for them, really. Like with all the financial issues they've had, and it's been well documented everywhere in existence. Just Barcelona are great going forward. Everyone knows that, but defensively, my God, it's absolutely disgusting to watch. Like Xavi, great player, fantastic. Well, good manager going forward. going backwards, quite frankly, I wouldn't trust him taking the bins out. He's just completely terrible organising defence. Doug just summarises it absolutely perfectly there. Inter, everyone knows how poorish they've been this season. But if I was an Inter fan, I'd be absolutely over the moon with that result.
Yes, he is, Doug. Yes, he is.
Barcelona needs something new, to be honest. Europa League again, poor. But at the end of the day, after being in the Champions League for so many years, being so successful, they are in rebuild phase for me. And maybe it's time that they need to be a little bit patient, have a year or two in the Europa League, and then get back to Champions League winning ways. So it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one.
George, Inter Milan obviously got a fantastic 2 results there against Barcelona. A free into the Camp Nou was something you probably wouldn't expect Inter Milan, but Barcelona, considering they were leading, really should have controlled this game. And Gerrard PK in 2022 ain't it, is it?
No, obviously PK has been a brilliant defender over his entire career, but yeah, he's really sort of declined. Obviously, there was the business in his personal life, which again, obviously everyone knows about, but no, I won't get into. But obviously now professionally, in terms of his sort of football career, that's also taken. That's also unfortunately declined. The funniest thing really for Barcelona in terms of Barcelona's demise, myself, really is about Frankie de Jong.
Yeah,
because all that time he was sort of adamant that he wanted to stay at Barcelona, in particular citing the fact that he obviously needed to play Champions League football. The fact obviously Barcelona was almost his dream club, and he couldn't wait to had to stay for Champions League and all that other sort of stuff. And now I'm seeing stories as well that he's incredibly unhappy with his lack of game time. Every single time I sort of look at the Barcelona lineups, he's never in it because he's being benched by, as I always say, two teenagers and a pensioner, with obviously Gavi, Pedri, and Busquets, which is absolutely hilarious.
That sounds like a bad check.
It's for me, it's just incredibly funny though, because obviously Gavi and Pedri are now both consecutive, as we know now, consecutive winners of that sort of that Copa award, obviously for Young Player of the Year. Which again, obviously don't agree with, but they're consecutive winners of it, and they're obviously teenagers. And then you've got Busquets, who's, as I said, what is he, 35, 36, whatever he is now, and Frankie de Jong is in the prime of his career, so mid-20s or whatever it is, and he still can't get a game, which just for me just sums up that he made a terrible decision staying at Barcelona. He'll be hoping that he can sort of fight his way back in, but I don't see it. I think he's waiting for Busquets to retire, because as it stands, he's not getting in that team. Obviously, Barcelona typically, as we know, certainly over my lifetime anyway, or at least like the last 10 or so years, they love that Spanish triumvirate in midfield. Obviously, when they had Xavi, Iniesta, and Busquets, and now obviously with Gavi, Pedri, and Busquets as well, they just love how it's almost that sort of. Again, sort of La Masia or tax or whatever, a bit like when Doug was sort of saying about Eric Garcia's terrible. I saw a TikTok as well where someone said Eric Garcia's doing his usual stuff when they were showing the El Clasico. But yeah, as I said, fully deserved for Frankie de Jong. Ultimately, whether Ten Hag will probably still go in for him though, because it's almost like Romeo and Juliet. He's just got to keep going back for Frankie de Jong, but I think we should move on from him.
Yeah,
he can stay at Barcelona and totally waste his career as far as I'm concerned. It's prime years. What a terrible decision from a footballing point of view and from his own career. Should have moved on. As you said though, Josh, obviously with Barcelona, they're probably going to try and push him out now, because they're obviously going to have to try and raise funds again, or they're probably going to have to start doing that sort of what we call the lever pulling process, which I had which we all had a front row seat to in the summer, when they were like, oh, they've got lots of levers they can pull. Oh, it's the third lever's this, the fourth lever's this, and all this other nonsense. So no doubt we'll see more levers being pulled, and my money is that Frankie de Jong will be one of those, and he might come to us. But of course, also Josh, as you know, he's linked to Chelsea as well. He was linked to them, so Chelsea. So maybe that's another thing that your club might explore as well, potentially in January or the summer.
I thought it was just never been impossible. Moving on to obviously Barcelona's El Clasico result in the Sagligo away. I honestly thought I didn't see the full game. I did watch the highlights and I watched the analysis and all that. And for what I'll be able to say, it did literally seem like Ancelotti had Xavi on Tukes that whole game, completely outcoached them, completely outdone them. The quality of Real Madrid overshone the Barcelona. And let's be honest, Real Madrid haven't exactly been that great this season either. So, Barcelona had a good chance to win that El Clasico, and I think they were completely outplayed.
One defeat in 20 months in La Liga. One defeat in 20 months. That's Real Madrid. It's one of the best league records at home of all time. Like, that is hard to top. Like, that is a phenomenal record. That entire game was just classic Ancelotti. The man knew exactly what he was doing. The selection was fantastic. The substitutions were brilliant. The timing was perfect. I think the one thing that there's one player in this entire game that, apart from Valverde and maybe Vinicius Jr. for his defensive work and Benzema for his brilliance, there's one player in this entire game that I honestly think deserves an absolute apology from the football world, and that's Toni Kroos. Because there's people that come out there saying, the guy's lost it all. He's lost mobility. He can't defend. He cannot get into positions where he's going to be effective to find passes. This guy ran 9 kilometers against a team in a midfield that's 15 years younger than him. 2 of those players are about 15 years younger than him, and he completely ran shot round them. Not once, not twice, multiple times. He was absolutely brilliant. I agree Valverde was man of the match, but Kroos was, for me, a close second. I watched the game, I thought it was brilliant. Valverde's versatility is second to none. Like, this guy can play as a right winger, he can play as a midfielder. This guy could play in goalkeeper, and he would be the best player on the pitch. He's that good. Thank God Liverpool didn't sign him. I generally look at this Real Madrid team, and they are still the favourites to win the Champions League. They just know when to turn up. And going into this game, Barcelona were top of the league by luck. Like, it was just luck that Real Madrid drew a game. Like, and that's how Barcelona were top of the game. Now Real Madrid are 3 points clear. The goal difference obviously favours Barcelona, but that's not going to really do anything because obviously La Liga is head to head. But when you look at this game, they're the only team left unbeaten. They're the only team that seems to beat themselves when they want to. But just in the league in general, they just know what they're doing now. I think they've finally realised after so many years, yes, we want to win the Champions League, but for goodness sake, we want to actually win our domestic league. For years, they didn't bother at their arse. They just wanted the Champions League. Now you look at Real Madrid and you go, generally, when are they ever going to not win the league now? Because this is generally good. Like, Ancelotti, he'll probably retire at the end of this season. If not, it'll be next year. But the team he's leaving behind, there's no way the next manager can get this wrong. Like, there's no way you can get it wrong. It's carefully balanced. And I think the one thing that really interests me as well, though, was Barcelona's defending in the first half. Yeah, I agree, George. Like, Alphonso Davies, yeah, that'd be an amazing signing for them to replace Mendy, who is categorically shit. Like, he is categorically shit.
One of the most overrated left backs in Europe.
Absolutely. The way that Barcelona defended in the first half, like, at one point they were defending as a back 4, then they were defending as a back 3, then a back 5. I don't see where exactly. I think Premier League fans owe him a massive apology as well. Like, Ancelotti for saying he's finished. He's not finished. You just need to give him the tools. Like, the man knows what he's doing. He is the best manager in world football. Like, I don't care. Like, Carlo Ancelotti, like, in the club game, he's the best manager. Like, he just knows what he's doing. He gets so much disrespect. Vinicius Jr. right now is proving why he is the best young winger in football. Rafael close second. It's crazy the difference when Barcelona start with Ansu Fati on the bench and how good a team they actually are when he actually comes on the field. Barcelona were actually much better when Fati came on. Dembele, I think, was wrong to come off. I think it should have been Rafinha. Rafinha really didn't do anything for me. But Dembele's movement was fantastic. How he's staying injury-free is alarming. That is some voodoo magic. But I think it's now the time where Barcelona really need to think about their midfield. And I understand sentimentality, but it's time to show Sergio Busquets the door. He's a great midfielder. Like he's brilliant, but it's time. It is time to tell you, mate, you're done. 5 Champions Leagues, buddy. Like is that?
5?
Hold on, let's see. 2. No, hold on. 2 Real Madrid, 2 East. No, 4. 4. But he will probably win 5. But he's won 6 in his career. He won 2 at AC Milan as well as a player. Like the guy he just knows the Champions League. He knows European football. He's that good. But the one thing that lets Ancelotti down, though, the one thing that lets him down is concentration of certain players. I think the one thing that really let him down was his defence at the weekend, like right at the very end. Rudiger, he brought him on. Obviously, Rudiger's got 20 stitches in his head. Like that's not his fault. I think he was brilliant as a striker, but I think Militao and Alaba, they're good defenders, but they let him down in the second half. I think it must have just been the legginess, but even like the slowest of defenders in a game, like in a big game, will show you the consistency. That's why Chiellini will always be one of the best defenders in Italian football, because even leggy against fast strikers, he just knew what to do. In this one, Alaba got it wrong. Militao was caught for days, but there's nothing else you can really say. I'm surprised the Lunin started though in goal. Like that was the bit that surprised me that Lunin started. I thought that was a very interesting choice by Ancelotti to give him a chance. I think it shows that the Real Madrid have faith in him as well. That obviously Courtois is an amazing goalkeeper. Shout out to him for winning the Yashin Award. Like he deserved it. But I think it shows testament to Ancelotti's character as a great manager and a great man manager that he's willing to give Luna an opportunity in their biggest game of the season. But Benzema, unlucky to have his goal disallowed. That was brilliant movement, brilliant left foot finish from outside the box, but it was offside. I do agree, like that was definitely the right decision, but shameless defending from Real Madrid to concede as well. Like the second half very late on, like they had that game controlled. That game could have finished 3-3, but I think the one good thing for them is Rodrigo's pace off the bench. Barcelona couldn't handle that, and I was surprised he took the penalty, but I like the old adage, like as we do as mates, as you do as like mates, obviously, makers, takers. Well, Rodrigo won it. He took it. Brilliant penalty. And it was the right result in the end. Like there was no way that Barcelona were getting anything in that game. And that's what 6 or 7 I think that's 6 or 7 defeats for Barcelona in the last 8 El Clasicos. What is he saying now, you bugger? Oh, for fuck's sake.
Oh, jeez.
Fuck's sake, Doug. Yeah, I think it is, but like their record is so bad. Like Barcelona against Real Madrid in recent years. And I'll go as far as say to this. Barcelona, if they go into the Europa League, shouldn't even bother to win it. They shouldn't bother. They should just go straight after La Liga. Like they should just put everything they can to go after. The best thing they can do is to take the league title, because I don't think they're going to get anything worthy out of winning the Europa League. Even the Champions League place, it won't benefit them at all, because they'll still finish in the Europa League place the following season. Like this Barcelona team is a shadow of the team from 5 years ago, 10 years ago. They're not producing great talent anymore. How you can tell me Gavi wins the award ahead of Jamal Musiala is shocking. And I hope Musiala gets a hat-trick against Barcelona. I hope he gets a hat-trick.
I tell you one thing as well that I need to add in there, Reese, is that for me, this is the worst Barcelona squad in 50 years.
Oh, yeah. Hands
Maybe
down.
ever.
The funny thing is, though, this Barcelona team's a disrespect to Johan Cruyff.
I agree.
It's a disrespect to him. If I was Johan Cruyff, I'd be turning in my grave right now. I would be. If I was Pep Guardiola, I'd stop being a Barcelona fan.
Well, Reece, thank you very much for that. Thank you to all you three for an amazing show once again. I said there's so much football to digest these days because the games really are coming thick and fast. in Europe in the Premier League in the Championship because we're edging very close to the World Cup now. Obviously, World Cup squads are going to be getting announced very shortly. The World Cup will be given very soon. Obviously, all three of these are very lucky that all your countries, like all obviously Reese's obviously Reese's team isn't in the World Cup, but we will have to do our
wanker. My team will fucking win the World Cup, you cheeky bastard.
What do you call it? We'll have to do our World Cup predictions very soon. I'll have to try and organise what should we do.
We've got a lot of good content coming up on the World of Football podcast.
Yes, there is a quiz that will be happening eventually. They're just these boys are trying to work out dates for it. It's just
I think the best thing we can do. What time are the kickoffs on Wednesday? I think our best day is probably Wednesday because you look at
Cardiff playing on Wednesday.
Oh, do you? Home or away?
Away.
Oh, so that's fine. Then you can do the quiz, then.
I'll see what I'm doing. I'll probably.
What time's your kickoff?
That one. I think it's 8:00. I'll double check now.
I don't know what I need to double check. I need to double check our kickoff for the
8:15.
Are that our kickoff against Spurs?
7:45.
And obviously, I'll be working till 6:00. Fucking hell.
Well,
we are going to get this quiz done, guys. We are going to do this quiz, by the way. It will happen. Don't worry.
Doug, there is going to be a prediction issue for the World Cup on the World of Football podcast. That is,
and you will be on it. You will be on it.
I have had a plan for ages. I just need to figure out which Monday to do it on. That's something I'm currently in the process of trying to do. So yes, the football keeps coming fast. Next week, obviously we'll have lots of Premier League games to digest. The midweek fixtures on top of the weekend fixtures, on top of obviously the South Wales Derby, which will be on Sunday. So there'll be a lot more football, and also we'll have more Premier League, more Champions League predictions to do. So yeah, there's so much to do on these shows these days. So George, going to mix up my final remark. I'm going to ask you all a different question. I kind of mix it up. So, George, what was your takeaway from this weekend of Premier League action? What was the one thing you take away from this weekend?
Well, it's the same takeaway I have every single weekend, which is that the referees are utter shit, and it's never going to stop. Unfortunately, they're always going to be allowed to act like clowns with no repercussions whatsoever, no accountability, and yeah, that's unfortunately just the way that the cookie crumbles, and we just have to make the best of it, unfortunately.
Reese, are Rangers going to do a turnaround and go and win the league after a very dominant display against Hibs at the weekend? Are Rangers going to turn a corner and go and win the league?
The way they're playing in the league right now is really annoying because that's exactly what we did in the Europa League last year. Like it's really annoying. I think Rangers should just be renamed bipolar. Like it's just how we're at right now. It's really annoying. I actually think Celtic in recent weeks have actually been very flaky, conceding random goals. They're looking very easy to score against. Some results have been quite questionable. I actually think Rangers could win the league, but I don't know. I hope so, but we'll see. But there's a few things that have to change before that can happen.
And do you think it's the best question of all? South Wales Derby prediction.
1-0 Swansea.
I'm going to have to go 2-0 Cardiff because, quite frankly, God forbid we lose this again, which will take it to 6 in a row. That is 100% going to happen.
Okay. So
and the fans will absolutely force him out as well.
Everybody, thank you so much for getting involved in the chat. The chat has been absolutely sublime. Kian, Doug, Maisie, Helly, Yeti Boy, and everyone else. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Kian.
Thank you.
Nathan's coming with a war chest.
Thank you, everyone, so much for tuning in.
Nathan's gonna call in Bruce Willis in an Apache helicopter.
But it just drives me absolutely insane. We scored 1 goal in this fixture in 10 years. It's an utter disgrace. Like these absolute clowns.
Maybe you just need a penalty.
Maybe we do. Just the fans need something. They failed to do it for the last 4 years. You got me going again. 1 goal in 10 years. It's absolutely disgusting. These clowns at the top need to answer for it, and they've refused to do that.
Yeah, but everyone, thank you so much for getting involved in the chat.
All I'll say, actually, before we finish, just put me out of misery. What's your predictions? I'm going to go 2-0 Cardiff. I just need something.
1 each. Swansea are really poor this year.
Unfortunately, Nathan, much as I don't want to, for your sake, I'm going to say 3-0 Swansea.
Oh, still no goals. I haven't seen a goal in 10 years.
Yeah, right, because that's the one game you did beat Swansea was in lockdown, wasn't it? You were watching
It was.
Let's
see. Prediction. You picked on Rangers last week. You picked on Leipzig, so it's natural that I get my own way. I'm going to go. I'm going to go 4-2 Swansea.
Yikes.
Are
we all predicted an extremely toxic vlog as well?
Exactly.
If you lose, you will rant, that's for sure.
We'll put it this way. If Cardiff lose by 2 or more goals, that's an if. If Cardiff lose by 2 or more goals, then Nathan misses out on the first 5 points in the World of Football quiz.
No.
Wow.
That's
I'm only kidding. I wouldn't do that to you.
I've got to check something.
I wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't do that to you. But I generally do think you are. Mind you, Swansea have been a bit iffy though lately. I've seen
they've got injuries, but so do we, and they've got the best player out.
Yeah, I think that might turn it. That's why I think there'll be goals for you guys, Will, but a little bit like maybe shaky for them. But who knows? Actually, I'll bring it down a bit. I'll go 3-2. I think it's going to be a lot closer. I'll go 3-2.
At least you backed us for a goal. I want to check something as well because this goes to show. When they pumped us 3-0 when we were chanting you getting sacked in the morning to McCarthy, that got 13,000 views.
You should have chanted stay in the job.
And the thing that makes me laugh as well is my top 3 most watched videos are all losses.
That sounds about right.
Like since I've started this chat, have we had anything to cheer about?
Nope.
Is there anything like that we can remotely celebrate?
World peace.
Well,
as you've seen on Cardiff Twitter, definitely not.
Well, anyway, that does bring the end of the football, guys. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. Thank you, George. Thank you, Reese. Thank you, Nathan, for all your amazing views and input once again. As I said, Monday next week, Cap said we'll be back once again to digest every piece of football and look ahead to the next week football ahead. So, everyone, thank you very much for watching. Enjoy your weeks ahead. Stay hydrated, stay safe. And if I'm not mistaken, actually, next Monday is Halloween.
It is.
It is.
Halloween next, because I'm working, so I'm looking forward to that.
So we'll see you on Halloween night for the next podcast, guys. 7:30 on the Josh.
My favorite day of the year, folks.
Everyone, take it easy.
Who am I to just surrender? I'm not holding